A lot of musicians are hot-headed, and in an industry where there are often collaborations or run-ins or general interactions, that can lead to a lot of disagreements. From diss tracks to buying your rival's entire music catalog, there have been a lot of crazy beefs in the music industry. So today we're going to look into those, starting off with the many beefs of Eminem. Real quick, I do want to clarify, a lot of people did kind of transition into different careers after their beefs with Eminem. For example, MGK is widely believed to have stopped rapping after his beef with Eminem for that reason. So while Eminem may have killed his rap career, he seems to be doing pretty well in pop punk, and that's kind of how it is with a lot of the people in this video. But for that reason, we are first going to be looking into Eminem's feud with Machine Gun Kelly, which seems to be the most obvious example of this. So Machine Gun Kelly and Eminem's beef starts long before the infamous diss tracks of 2018. It all started in 2012 when MGK said on Twitter, "Okay, so I just saw a picture of Eminem's daughter and I have to say, she is hot as f," in the most respectful way possible because Eminem is king. Not only was this a weird thing to say about someone's daughter, but he was also 21 and she was 16, which makes it really weird. On top of some other very weird tweets he posted early in his career. Many people think this tweet is what sparked the diss track battles, but MGK has since claimed in interviews that he actually settled it by talking with Eminem's people.
You know, truth be told, we had handled it behind the scenes.
Really?
6 years ago.
So y'all spoke about it?
So after
No, he's a recluse. We can't find him. So we didn't speak. I spoke to Paul Rosenberg and his team because that is as man to man as it gets with him.
Regardless of things being settled or not, MGK continued to hint at a beef with Eminem, especially in a 2015 interview with Hot 97. During the interview, he basically accused Eminem of blackballing him from the industry.
You know, quiet is kept still, you know, is a reason why certain things don't, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Don't happen.
Right?
Okay.
So like, listen or review this joint. Certain places you won't even hear Machine Gun Kelly on.
Oh.
Certain things
Right.
won't even happen, and
Because of that.
and look, man.
MGK thought that since Eminem was with Interscope and had so much power there, he was trying to influence the label's decisions with his career, although he wouldn't say this until years later. He also thought Eminem was the reason his music wasn't being played on Shade 45. Keep in mind, this whole time, Eminem had said nothing. Then yet again in 2017, MGK dissed Eminem on Tech N9ne's song No Reason, when he said, "I pop cherries and pop stars. You popsicles is not hard. Popped in on the top charts, out the cop car. To remind y'all, you just rap, you're not gods." Many people interpreted this diss as a reference to Eminem's rap god, which it was. Tech N9ne later had to clarify that he had no idea MGK was dissing him on this song. Then a year later, on his surprise album Kamikaze, Eminem spent half of a verse on the song Not Alike dissing MGK. He mentioned how MGK had to team up with Tech N9ne just to diss him, made fun of MGK for sneak dissing, and mentioned how MGK talked about his daughter Haley. This song garnered a ton of attention, along with the entire album, as Eminem was going crazy dissing tons of people. But this beef got super popular because MGK responded with an entire diss track towards Eminem called Rap Devil. He talked about Haley, Em trying to shelve him, and many more things. Just over a week after Kelly released Rap Devil, Eminem responded with his own diss track called Kill Shot. He addressed a lot of what Kelly said, along with a ton of other disses, which really won over the public. It's pretty obvious when you look at the like to dislike ratio as to who the public thought really won. They both followed up these diss tracks doing interviews, and one of the main talking points was whether or not Eminem tried to have MGK shelved. This is what Eminem said.
Actually, a lot more petty than that.
Okay.
The reason that I dissed him is because first when he said, I'm the greatest rapper alive since my favorite rapper banned me from Shade 45 or whatever he said, right? Like I'm trying to hinder his career. So I don't give a f about your career. You think I actually think about you? You know how many rappers that are better than you? You're not even in the conversation. I don't care if you blow or if you don't blow.
So Eminem basically revealed he was upset Kelly was throwing subliminals for a year, talking about his daughter, and making what he said are false accusations about him trying to shelve Kelly's career. Shortly after this, MGK did an interview with The Breakfast Club and said that Eminem was lying.
What Eminem said wasn't true was that he didn't make a call in regards to the daughter situation, and you know, that was false. Jimmy Iovine and Puff conference called me at 9 in the morning with multiple other people. And that was a conversation that happened at 3 in the morning the previous night with Harv Pierre, James Cruz, Paul Rosenberg, James McMillan.
So M lied. He did talk to Puff. Because
M
said he
lied.
never talked to Puff.
So we don't really know who's telling the truth here, but the public did side with Eminem. Again, you can just look at the like to dislike ratio on MGK's Breakfast Club interview. MGK said he had another diss track ready, but since he thought M's was weak, he didn't release it. He even called it a leg shot on Twitter. However, following this beef with Eminem, MGK's career career took a turn for the worse. As many of us know, MGK started making rock music shortly after his beef with Eminem, and many people believe that Eminem is the reason that MGK switched genres. Following the Eminem beef, Kelly released the EP Binge, which did okay, but MGK himself claims the beef really hurt his career. He was working on an album called Hotel Diablo, with a couple of tracks that would hint at the direction he would eventually take genre-wise. And when he released it in 2019, it didn't do as well as he had hoped. It had weaker first week sales than any of his other albums, and although it did alright in terms of streams, MGK said himself, as a hip-hop album, Diablo is flawless front to back, and also a hint at the evolution of how I went into a pop-punk album. But it was coming at the tail end of the infamous beef with Eminem, so no one wanted to give it the time of day. So even though he's doing alright with his pop-punk music and his fan base, the beef with Eminem definitely did a lot of damage. MGK hate is everywhere on the internet, and it probably wouldn't be nearly as bad if it wasn't for that beef. And he actually said something that made it seem like Eminem was in one way or another responsible for him switching genres. He said, "The next album came from already feeling like I'd been counted out, so I didn't even care what the public was gonna think." Interestingly enough, in Killshot, Eminem said, "Kelly, they'll be putting your name next to Ja next to Benzino. Die like the last motherfucker that said Haley in vain." Which brings us to our next artist whose career Eminem killed. So back in the day when magazines were a big thing, The Source magazine was one of the biggest magazines in hip-hop. The Source magazine did album reviews, and they would rate albums out of 5 mics. And when Eminem's album, the Marshall Mathers LP, came out in 2000, which was arguably his best album and my personal favorite from him, The Source gave it a rating of 2 mics. Ironically enough, M dissed The Source the year prior for giving a group he was friends with, The Outsiders, a 2 out of 5 mics as well. But after The Source gave the Marshall Mathers LP a 2 out of 5 mics, fans got so upset that The Source actually changed the rating to 4. And this is when most people believe the beef started.
When I was a kid growing up in the early 90s on hip-hop, The Source, as we used to know it, was the Bible of hip-hop. Like, it was, their word was gold. If somebody got 4 mics, you was going to copy. If somebody got 5 mics, you was going to copy. Somebody got 3.5, yeah, you know, you didn't know. But their word was gold, and they was usually right.
I know that you have yet to receive a 5 mic review in The Source. Is that something that was...
I have yet to receive even a 4.5. Everybody gets a 4. Everybody, like, that's the standard now. That's the standard. If you get a 4.5, that must mean that Benzino wants you on his album.
It's clear that Eminem used to respect The Source and wanted to get a good score, especially when he said on the song Say What You Say, 5 mics in The Source ain't hold my fucking breath, but I'll suffocate for the respect before I breathe to collect a fucking check. Ironically enough, this song was on the album The Eminem Show, which also received 4 mics. Eminem blamed the co-founder of The Source, Benzino, for this happening. He figured Benzino had a problem with him, and he was right, as Benzino later admitted to blocking his scores from getting 5 mics.
Mainstream media, and it's like, you know, Eminem is the king of hip hop, you know, he's the greatest to ever do it, you know, they're just, you know, going crazy with, you know, the way they're portraying him. And I think that, you know, rubbed Benzino the wrong way, and I think it had him thinking like, you know, this could be bad for hip-hop.
Which is ironic because Benzino was giving his own albums 5 mics, which really hurt The Source's credibility. There was also an incident where Benzino apparently tried to interview Eminem backstage at a show in Puerto Rico, but Eminem ignored him. This is where the beef really picked up, and Benzino released the song I Don't Wanna, where he first dissed Eminem. Apparently after this, 50 Cent was hosting Hot 97, and Eminem called in and said, "I want to request that new Benzino record. It's hot. See if you can find that one and play it for me. You might have to dig in the trash. It may be in the bottom of the trash can." Then Benzino released another diss track called Pull Your Skirt Up. He called Eminem 2003 Vanilla Ice and also mentioned backslapping Eminem's mom. Eminem had vaguely referenced the beef on the song Invasion, but he directly targeted Benzino on the songs The Sauce and Nail in the Coffin, which were both released in late 2002. As you'll see with most of these beefs, the fans preferred Eminem's diss tracks much more. The next month, Benzino released the diss track Die Another Day, and he went all out. He was dissing everyone, calling Eminem racist, and also threatened Eminem's daughter's life. He said, "Tell Haley it ain't safe no more. Daddy better watch your back at the candy store. You fucked up, resort to plan B, fuck around, and she end up like John Benet Ramsey." She was also only 7 years old at the time, which is pretty crazy. Then Benzino released a few more diss tracks toward Eminem.
I mean, did something happen to spark that between you and him? Did anything happen? I mean...
Angie, I swear on my daughter's life, I never met this dude. I never met this man, this girl in my life. I never met this woman. She is obsessed with me.
This is when the great magazine beef between XXL and The Source started, with both magazines picking sides between the artists. There were a lot of beefs going on involving Eminem's camp, so many diss tracks were coming out, and M kept throwing shots at Benzino on multiple songs. They actually kept making diss tracks back and forth at each other for a while until in November of 2003, when Benzino and The Source revealed that they had old tapes of Eminem using racial slurs in his songs. There were a bunch of songs which they labeled the racist tapes, which featured Eminem being racist. They played a snippet at a press conference and were planning on releasing a full album of these racist songs. But Eminem sued them so they couldn't release it. Eminem said, "The tape they played today was something I made out of anger, stupidity, and frustration when I was a teenager. I'd just broken up with my girlfriend who is African American, and I reacted like the angry, stupid kid I was. I hope people will take it for the foolishness that it was, not for what somebody is trying to make it into today." Unfortunately for Benzino, Eminem's fans accepted his apology right after it was aired. Then later on in 2005, Benzino left The Source and cited his beef with Eminem as part of the reason he left. So the fact that M was part of the reason this guy quit his job, I'd say he quite literally killed his career. At least his career at The Source, because he's been doing a bunch of other stuff since. Eminem later dropped the lawsuit and seemingly tried to move past the beef, and Benzino has apologized, dissed him, and then apologized again, so it seems like he's a little wishy-washy about it. For a very long time, Eminem actually never said anything about this beef, but he did reference it, like I mentioned earlier, on the Kamikaze album. Vanilla Ice's career was already on a downward trend following Ice Ice Baby, but he had a beef with Eminem that definitely didn't do anything to help him. In 1990, a year after Vanilla Ice released his song Ice Ice Baby, Eminem and his friend Proof, under the group name Soul Intent, released a song called MC Hammer vs. Vanilla Ice. Eminem rapped as Vanilla Ice and Proof rapped as MC Hammer, and we're kind of just joking around since it was a parody. Then in the late 90s, Eminem released the songs Just Don't Give a Fuck and Role Model, in which he said, "I'm everlasting, I melt Vanilla Ice like a silicone, I'm ill enough to just straight up diss you for no reason," and grabbed Vanilla Ice and ripped out his blonde dreads. Eminem was clearly not a fan of Vanilla Ice, but at this point in time, Vanilla Ice had not said a word about him. So why did he hate him so much? Well, in an interview in 2005, Eminem recalls his first time hearing Ice Ice Baby and said, "That crushed me. At first, I felt like I didn't want to rap anymore. I was so mad because he was making it real hard for me." Eminem was occasionally compared to Vanilla Ice in his early career since they were both white, but Eminem didn't want to be viewed as a gimmick rapper like Vanilla Ice was. So after Eminem mentioned Vanilla Ice on both of those songs, Vanilla Ice said in an interview with Vibe that Eminem's lyrical skills didn't impress him. In response, Eminem said on the song Marshall Mathers in 2000, "Vanilla Ice don't like me. He said some shit in Vibe to spite me, then went and dyed his hair just like me." This prompted Vanilla Ice to release the diss song Exhale in 2001, in which he said, "You jibber jabber, bullshit flapper, wanna be rapper. Fake mini me like who? Marshall Mathers." Vanilla Ice had this mindset that he paved the way for Eminem, and even said that in songs, since he was one of the first big white rappers.
Is that, it's obvious that I've left such an impact on his life that he has to mention me without even knowing me on every single record that he makes. He mentions me, a statement about me on there. So I've left an impact on his life, obviously. So he might feel a little inferior. I'm sure when he was coming up, before he had any success, people go, "All right, Vanilla Ice, fuck with him," or I'm sorry, mess with him,
Although M attributed the paving the way for white rappers to Third Base much more than he did Vanilla Ice. And that was about it for their beef. Eminem didn't mention Vanilla Ice too much after that, but most fans had decided he won, just because he was the much better artist. If you look at any interviews or songs where Vanilla Ice mentions Eminem, it's pretty obvious in the comments who thinks who won. Vanilla Ice, as he fell from relevancy, continued mentioning Eminem and was much more respectful as Eminem solidified himself as one of the biggest rappers ever. He would later acknowledge Eminem's skill while still saying he wasn't a fan of the music.
I'm not a big fan, to be honest with you. No, but I can see the talent. I can see why it sells. I can see it's commercially mainstream. And, the shock jock value and everything. I ain't hating on Eminem, man.
Vanilla Ice did get a ton of hate while he was rapping, and I think over the years as he's done different things, people began to like him more. But I think regardless of the Eminem beef, Vanilla Ice's career was on a downward trend. But Eminem's jabs at him were probably the final nail in the coffin. Like I mentioned earlier, in the early 2000s, there were a lot of beefs going on in Eminem's camp. One of those beefs was 50 Cent versus Ja Rule. And when Eminem signed 50 Cent to his and Dre's record label, Ja Rule began to target Eminem.
For the shady Aftermath G-Unit family, beef has been a constant. From the melee involving G-Unit Aftermath at the 2004 Vibe Awards, to M's beef with Source magazine owner Benzino, to the well-documented feud between 50 Cent and Ja Rule.
Ja Rule released the diss song Loose Change and came out swinging at Eminem for almost no reason other than him signing 50. Ja took shots at everyone, called Eminem feminem, and told him that he could be the first white rapper slain, and then said, "Em, you claim your mother's a crackhead and Kim's a known slut, so what's Haley gonna be when she grows up?" This understandably upset Eminem, who responded on these songs Hail Mary and Do Re Mi. Do Re Mi, also known as Haley's Revenge, was a song that some people claim was Eminem's most ruthless diss track ever. And it was pretty good, as he had his daughter on the song making fun of Ja and brought out D12 and Obi Trice. They sent a few more diss tracks back and forth at each other for about a year, and then Eminem disclosed a story on the song Bump Heads, in which he said, "So what's the big deal? Where was all the tough talk? When I walked up to you like, Ja, what up dog? How come you didn't say you had a problem back then?" Em expanded on this in an interview where he said that he saw Ja Rule after signing 50 and was talking to him trying to see if there were any issues about the signing. But Ja Rule apparently didn't say anything about the situation. Then after that conversation, apparently Ja Rule came out talking bad about Eminem and then dropped the diss track, which M claims really blindsided him. To be fair though, Ja Rule also has his own side of the story that he talks about on Vlad TV.
Me and him had a conversation right there.
This was after.
This was while it was.
Oh, while it was happening.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? And it was a man-to-man, respectful conversation. Like, I know what it is, Em, and Em's like, you know, I don't really got no hard feelings towards you. It's just that's home team, and it's a rap beef, and
he signed to my label.
He signed to my label. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I know what it is. You know what I'm saying? I said I ain't got nothing against you neither.
Eminem kind of chilled out on beefs after deciding it wasn't good for his mental health and talked about it a lot on the song Like Toy Soldiers.
What the intent of the song, what the intent was to do is to just say from, at least from our side, like this is a chapter in our lives that we want to close and we want to move on from this beef. So we're closing this chapter.
It's pretty apparent with lyrics like, "That Ja shit, I tried to squash it, but it was too late to stop it. There's a certain line you don't cross and he crossed it. I heard him say Haley's name on a song and I just lost it. And even though the battle was won, I feel like we lost it." Following the beef, Ja Rule continued doing his own thing. I've seen people online in articles claim that it seems as if Adkins, Ja Rule, was relying on Jackson, 50 Cent, and Mathers, Eminem, to stay in the spotlight. And while I wouldn't say his beef with Eminem killed his career, it definitely didn't help it. As we've seen with everyone else on this list, the fans always tend to side with Eminem. Eminem and Nick Cannon's beef began years ago, back in the early 2000s when Eminem was beefing with Mariah Carey after he claimed they had dated. She denied it and they went back and forth for a while, but then in 2008, Nick Cannon and Mariah Carey got married. So the following year, on the song Bagpipes from Baghdad, Eminem said, "Mariah, whatever happened to us? Why did we have to break up? Nick, you had your fun. I've come to kick you in your sack of junk." Nick then responded with a Tumblr post that addressed the situation, and he brought up the racist tapes I mentioned earlier. But after that, it seemed like the beef was over. Then randomly, 10 years later, it was reignited when Nick Cannon talked about the situation on T.I.'s podcast.
And this motherfucker drop a song, like, talking shit, like, calling her all kind of and I'm like, this is my wife. This is my new wife.
Ooh.
I got it. Like,
Nick actually probably was in the right to begin with, since he just wanted to be a man about it since M went after his wife. He said at first he wanted to fight him, but cooler heads prevailed, so then he just wanted to talk about it. This interview though seemingly upset Eminem, who responded on a verse on Fat Joe's song Lord Above, in which he said, "I know me and Mariah didn't end on a high note, but that other dude's whipped, that pussy got him neutered. Tried to tell him this chick's a nut job before he got his jewels clipped. Almost got my caboose kicked. Fool quit, you not gonna do shit. I let her chop my balls off too before I lost to you, Nick." Nick responded with a series of Instagram posts kinda trolling Eminem. Then he released a diss track called The Invitation. I think if Nick Cannon just left off on the interview and didn't say anything else, he would have been good. But The Invitation was probably the worst diss track I've ever heard. He also tried the tactic we've seen where he's his wife and Haley, which didn't help the song at all. It has over 600,000 dislikes, and the comments really go to show who thinks who won. Even 50 Cent told Eminem after this came out, "Don't even say nothing to him. the record is terrible. M posted a couple tweets about it, but that was it. The next day, Nick released the diss track Pray For Him, and again, Nick got clowned. The top comment on the vid was, Eminem is so good he made history, the first rapper to win a rap battle without even rapping. Nick Cannon then released yet another diss song called Invitation Cancelled, and in this one he sampled the racist tapes I mentioned earlier and basically just went all out calling Eminem racist. Again, people clowned Nick with comments like, imagine shooting someone with their back turned, missing 3 shots, and not even getting that person to turn around. Because it was literally the third diss track Nick had released within the span of 11 days without a response from Eminem, unless you count the 2 tweets. Nick kinda kept it going for too long, was spamming tweets about it, and was definitely dragging the beef out, especially since M hadn't responded. Nick also claimed he won, which by court of public opinion clearly was not true. Also, he just kept talking about Eminem on songs following the 3 main diss tracks, which at that point was just embarrassing. This made Nick look very corny to onlookers, especially to people who didn't know the context, and he even admitted this himself while mentioning his real intention was to get M on Wildin' Out.
I was a little overzealous. I was a little heavy-handed. I'm gonna say a couple of things. One, first of all, I love Eminem. As an artist, the Slim Shady LP, Marshall Math, those are like some of my favorite albums.
Yeah.
But I think there was a lot that went on there. One, the whole goal was to get him to come on Wildin' Out and acknowledge us, like, so that there was a mission to it. Cause I was like, yo, that'd be the most amazing show ever.
So while Nick has a successful TV career, his beef with Eminem definitely did no service to his music career. And while Eminem was a rapper that a lot of people had beef with, I'd argue that Drizzy almost had it worse most recently. In light of recent events, Drake's beef with Metro and Future is pretty well documented, so I'm not going to go super into detail in this section, but it provides the backstory for us to understand why all of these rappers assembled to diss Drake. So Future and Metro Boomin are the 2 people responsible for the so-called rap civil war, and it seems like Metro Boomin is the main mastermind behind it. But why does Metro Boomin hate Drake? Well, it seems to have started back in December of 2022 when Drake was left off of Metro Boomin's album Heroes and Villains.
I was just in the studio with Drake one time because we were going to do some stuff on my album, and he just wanted to hear some songs from my album. Then he heard that one and really wanted to get on it. But, like, I was letting him know that he was really just done for real, and I was really just set on how it was. I was like, bro, I ain't even trying to sell you no dream. Like, it's really, like, just locked in. I'm locked in where it was, but
their beef seemed to flare up again after Drake and 21 Savage's album Her Loss kept winning Album of the Year over Metro's album. Metro tweeted, yet Her Loss still keeps winning Rap Album of the Year over H&V. Proof that award shows are just politics and not for me. I don't care about awards honestly. The true award and reward is knowing that the music I spend so much time on brings joy to people's everyday lives. Metro quickly deleted it, but there was obviously some tension there. Drake also seemed to respond in a live stream.
And to the rest of you, the non-believers, the underachievers, the tweet and deleters, you guys make me sick to my stomachs, fam. Honestly, if you guys want to look in my eyes, you guys want to do something? You guys... That's what I thought.
So we can't be sure if simply leaving Drake off of his album and Drake winning a bunch of awards over him was what started all of it, but it definitely seemed to fuel the flames. And it made Metro mad enough to make 2 whole albums with Future targeted at Drake, full of a bunch of other rappers who hated him. But why did Future, an old pal of Drake, participate in the formation of this civil war? Well, the origin of Future and Drake's beef is unknown, but we do have some ideas. The last time Drake and Future collabed was on Future's album I Never Liked You, but after that there was some speculation they had some problems.
And back to my Future, Metro Boomin, Drake tension. You don't think it's weird that nothing ever happened with that fucking hit smash song that Future and Drake made with Tim's?
What do you mean? Nothing
Wait
happened?
for you.
It was a hit.
When you say,
it was a hit.
When you say what? No, it was a hit. It was a smash.
So what you mean? Nothing happened with it.
Never heard it again.
And after that turned out to be the case when Future dissed Drake on his album, it left many people wondering why. Well, a lot of fans speculated for a while that the beef was caused by a girl. But Metro Boomin shut that down by saying, stop making stuff up for engagement and enjoy the music. So with that in mind, the next assumption was that Future and Metro are good friends, and that Future simply sided with Metro in his feud with Drake. Metro's producer tag is literally Future saying, if young Metro don't trust you, I'ma shoot you. And for whatever reason it is, Future and Metro have made it clear that they do not trust Drake. And it's clear that Drake has problems with them too, because on his recently leaked Push-Ups diss, he said, I could never be nobody #1 fan. Your first #1, I had to put it in your hand. which was a Future diss, and all he had to say to Metro was, "Shut your OS up and make some drums," which was pretty hilarious. So for whatever reason it started, that issue with Drake is why when they made the first album, they had to recruit another rapper who hates Drake, and that of course would be Kendrick Lamar. Again, Kendrick Lamar and Drake's beef is pretty well documented as of late, so I'm not going to go super in depth, but again, it has some important backstory. So Kendrick and Drake started off as friends in the early 2010s, with Drake really helping him out early on by bringing him on tour with A$AP Rocky. They collaborated a few times together as well. But the beef all started when Kendrick and Big Sean released Control, and in Kendrick's verse, he said he was coming at everyone in the rap game, including Drake. Most people weren't offended by this because Kendrick said he had love for them and figured it was just some friendly competition. But Drake took it a different way. Drake said, "I didn't really have anything to say about it. It just sounded like an ambitious thought to me. That's all it was. I know good and well that Lamar's not murdering me at all in any platform. So when that day presents itself, I guess we can revisit the topic," which is pretty ironic looking back. This, along with Kendrick progressively blowing up and challenging Drake's status, kicked off a decade of subliminals between the two artists that I'm not going to get into. But if we fast forward to the late 2010s when Kendrick was on a hiatus after Damn, we can see Drake directly calling him out multiple times.
You know, the other two guys that I'm constantly, you know, up against, which is like Cole and Kendrick. I'm excited that the decade's about to turn and we're gonna see who can, you know, who can go that extra stretch.
Know about these guys that go away 3, 4, 5 years, want to chill out, all that shit. That's not me.
After First Person Shooter, a song where Drake and Cole collabed and said they were the GOATs, Kendrick had to respond. That's when he featured on Like That with Future and Metro Boomin, in which he directly called out Drake. Kendrick said things like, "Mother F the big three, it's just big me. I'm really like that, and your best work is a light pack. Prince outlive Mike Jack. For all your dogs getting buried, that's okay with all these nines, he gonna see Pet Cemetery." As I'm sure most of you know, this diss sent everyone into a frenzy, and there was no way that Drake could not respond to it. So he did on the leaked diss song Push Ups, a song where most of the bars were directed at Kendrick, but he took some shots at everyone else dissing him as well. He said things like, "How you big steppin' with a size 7 men's on? Maroon 5 need a verse, you better make it witty. Then we need a verse for all the Swifties," and a bunch of other lines like that. On this song as well, Drake claimed that Like That is not what started the beef, but it's been brewing for a long time, which is evident in the decade of subliminals they've sent to each other. If you want a more in-depth video on Kendrick and Drake's relationship, I suggest this one by What's the Dirt, which I'll link down below. But Drake's recent response had a few other disses towards other artists in it, including The Weeknd. The Weeknd and Drake have had a fairly public feud that's been on and off for a while now, but after being featured all over Future and Metro's albums and sending some shots at Drake, the flames seem to have been reignited. It all started in 2010 after Drake heard a new young artist called The Weeknd, and they met in 2011. Drake supported his career very early on and was a big fan of him. They worked together a lot, and The Weeknd even wrote 4 of the songs on Drake's album Take Care. As The Weeknd was growing as a solo artist, in 2012 Drake said, "I want to continue being involved in his career and vice versa, and keep making music together. As far as on paper, it's all being worked out. But that's not really what counts anyway. What counts to me is the fact that affiliation is known, and that's all I really care about." It was clear that Drake wanted to sign The Weeknd, and he said it often.
This is forever the first artist that OVO ever had and still has, and OVO XO is alive forever, I promise.
But that would be turned on its head when The Weeknd signed with Republic Records in September of 2012, which clearly upset Drake. He said on Twitter, "You won't get away with just a thank you. You owe me a favor." Things went along as normal for a while. And if you're curious, a normal Drake beef looks like some subliminals throughout your songs while maintaining the fact that you're cool in your interviews. Until 2013, when The Weeknd did an interview with Complex. He revealed that the songs he gave to Drake were originally for his album House of Balloons, but The Weeknd made it sound like he didn't really want to or that it wasn't the right decision. He was also asked in reference to Drake, "People think you guys aren't cool with each other anymore," to which he responded, "No, that's not true, but it makes sense. The thing about Drake is I told him what my decisions were going to be, and he was down with it from the beginning." So despite the both of them saying they were cool, there did seem to be a bit of tension surrounding Take Care and The Weeknd not signing to OVO. In 2015, The Weeknd opened up a little bit more about his early relationship with Drake when he said to Rolling Stone, "I gave up almost half of my album. It's hard. I will always be thankful. If it wasn't for the light he shined on me, who knows where I'd be. And everything happens for a reason. You never know what I would say if this success wasn't in front of me now. So even though he wasn't entirely happy about giving some of his songs to Drake, he was still able to appreciate and acknowledge the big boost that Drake gave him. Things were quiet for a while until 2017 when they both appeared on each other's shows, signifying that they were cool despite any previous tension. But then Drake was rumored to be dating The Weeknd's ex-girlfriend Bella Hadid, which definitely could have sparked some issues between the two. After that, Drake posted a throwback photo to Take Care, and someone wrote in the comments that said The Weeknd wrote the entire album, to which Drake responded, Abel co-wrote on Shot For Me in Practice, obviously was featured on Crew Love and The Ride, and that's it. There's 20 songs on that album. Don't try me. But then The Weeknd actually got back with Bella Hadid for a while, which possibly upset Drake as many people speculated on his 2018 album Scorpion that he sent some more subliminals to The Weeknd. Then in 2019, The Weeknd seemingly dissed Drake back on his song Lost in the Fire, saying, and I just want a baby with the right one, cause I could never be the one to hide one. Which is a reference to Pusha T revealing that Drake had a son that he was hiding from the world. The Weeknd also said on Nav's song Price on My Head, you beefing with yourself, tell the truth. People on your side, they would ride for me too. But again, Drake would maintain that he had nothing but love for The Weeknd.
To this day, I'm always excited, always super happy for all those guys. And I never like had any resentment towards like, oh, you didn't stay on OVO. That was never really like, I'm not gonna say there weren't people that didn't feel a way about it, but that was never my thing. I never expected Abel to stay under OVO as soon as I heard him once express that he wanted to do his own thing. So it's like, my biggest regret would maybe be that we probably wasted 7 years not communicating with each other when we had something beautiful going on.
Drake echoed this sentiment on his song War by saying, OVO XO link up, and they boy that sound like he sang on Thriller, we just had to fix things, family 6 tings, we can't split up. After that, things seemed like they might have been cool again, especially when they were hanging out together at The Weeknd's birthday party in 2022. But in 2023, on Drake's album For All the Dogs, it seemed like he may have sent a shot at The Weeknd on the song All the Parties when he said, my playing P&D in them shorties don't listen to Weeknd. Some people don't think it was a diss, but after recent events, it very well could be. In late March of this year, Future and Metro Boomin released their collab album We Don't Trust You, which if you're unaware was essentially an entire diss album towards Drake, with a handful of features having beef with Drake as well. The Weeknd had some vocals on there, but it wasn't until they released We Still Don't Trust You where the disses at Drake came from The Weeknd. The most direct shots were on the song All to Myself when The Weeknd said, they could never diss my brothers when they got leaks in the operation. I thank God that I never signed my life away. And we never do the big talk, they shooters making TikToks got us laughing in the Lambo. This line references a few things, like OVO affiliates spilling the beans to Pusha T about Drake's son, and how The Weeknd is glad he never signed to OVO. And Drake, of course, was not a fan of this team-up, so he sent some shots back on his diss song that was recently leaked called Push-Ups. Drake said, your manager was Chubb's little blunt runner, claimed the 6 and you boys ain't even come from it. And when you boys got rich, you had to run from it. Cash blowing Abel bread out here tricking, shit we do for is he doing for dudes. Cash XO is The Weeknd's manager, so basically Drake was making fun of both of them in this line. So now that we know the beef with Drake and The Weeknd is back on, we can't say for sure exactly why, but it definitely has something to do with some ex-girlfriend drama or The Weeknd not signing to OVO back in the day. And because he knew The Weeknd hates Drake, Metro Boomin made sure to get him on this album with Future. And another person he made sure to get on this album was A$AP Rocky. Similar to The Weeknd, A$AP Rocky and Drake used to be good pals, but now there is some beef that is in large part because of a girl. Surprise, surprise. Back when A$AP Rocky was starting out, Drake took him on his Club Paradise tour with Kendrick Lamar, and because of this, Rocky said that Drake is the one who put him on.
The only person that put on for me when I ain't have nobody was Drake. I'm talking about Drake was the first person to put on like before anybody. He didn't want to sign me.
Yeah.
He didn't want to, it was like, yo, that's raw talent, yo. Like, you gotta shine, yo. I'm gonna see to it. I forever owe Drake.
They collabed together, most notably on songs like Effin' Problems, and were good buddies for a while. But as many of you probably know, Drake really liked Rihanna. They apparently dated briefly in 2009 and again in 2014, both of which Rihanna denied. But it seemed like Drake was obsessed with her, like when he gave a speech about her at the VMAs saying, "But most of all, we love the woman who hasn't changed since day one. She's someone I've been in love with since I was 22 years old. She's one of my best friends in the world. All my adult life, I've looked up to her even though she's younger than me. She's a living, breathing legend in our industry." Apparently, they even kissed on stage around this time. But there was a bit of a love triangle going on. A$AP Rocky and Rihanna met around 2011 and first collabed in 2012. He also toured with her in 2013. But then Rihanna and Rocky were seen hanging out a bit more in 2018 and 2019. And by 2020, there were rumors that they were dating after Rihanna had broken up with her previous boyfriend. Fast forward to 2022 and the couple is having a child together. Then another in 2023, and then Rihanna confirmed that their romantic relationship began in 2019. And there were even rumors they were going to get married. But one person seemed to be a tad bit jealous, and that was our good pal Drake. Many fans assumed that Drake's song Fear of Heights from For All the Dogs was about Rihanna, because he said things like, "Why they make it sound like I'm still hung up on you? That could never be me. Girl can't run me. Better him than me. Better it's not me. And the sex was average with you. I'm anti because I had it with you. And I had way better than you, TBH. Yeah, that man, he's still with you. He can't leave you." Basically, the entire first verse was aimed at Rihanna and Rocky, with, in my opinion, some pretty weak disses. Drake also seemingly dissed Rocky on the song Another Late Night when he said, "I ain't pretty Flacco, this shit get really rocky." Oh, and on Virginia Beach, Drake said, "I know what you say I could have treated you better or whatever, but I don't know, I think I did alright. And you know how you get drawing conclusions like you got a Parsons degree or something. I could have treated you better, that's crazy. Nope." In a hilarious interview where a TMZ reporter tried to jog with Rocky and ask some questions, she asked about the Drake diss, but Rocky didn't respond. But then Rocky somewhat responded on Kid Cudi's song Wow, where he said, "These people can't stomach me, gotta go get a mandrake." However, Rocky finally addressed the situation directly on Future and Metro's second diss album, We Still Don't Trust You, on the song Show of Hands. He said, "People swear they the baddest. I just beg the worst one. And they feelings over women. What, you hurt or something? I smashed before you birthed, son. Flacco hit it first, son. Still don't trust you. It's always us, never them. Heard you dropped your latest shit. Funny how it just came and went." So it's pretty obvious what Rocky's talking about here. Drake didn't seem to target Rocky on his latest diss track, but he did post this meme targeted at everyone who dissed him. So at least we know why the two of them started beefing. But one person we didn't know was beefing with Drake was Rick Ross, until we just recently learned the reason. Rick Ross is an artist who has seemingly been good friends with Drake for a while now, so many people were surprised to see them beefing. They've collaborated many times, most notably on songs like Money in the Grave and I'm On One. They even hinted at a collab album as recently as 2021. There was a brief conflict between the two back in 2016 when Drake was beefing with Meek Mill, since Meek was signed to Rick Ross's label. Ross said, "If it's gotta go there, Renzel gonna jump off the porch on your ass. That's just the way I've always been and I'm gonna die that way. You just gotta know what you're doing for your dogs." So he clearly was siding with his signee, which makes sense. And when Drake and Meek patched things up, so did Rick Ross and Drake in 2017. The most recent time we've heard Rick Ross speak positively of Drake was in May of 2023 when he said on Drink Champs that him and Drake are very close. Even in January of this year, Rick Ross said to Aiden Ross on a live stream that his favorite Drake collaboration was Stay Schemin' and that it was a magical experience making it. In March of this year, Rick Ross and his girlfriend Christina Mackey announced that they had broken up back in February. But then, for some reason, Rick Ross unfollowed Drake on Instagram after Like That by Future, Metro, and Kendrick was released. Everyone was focused on the Kendrick verse and may not have realized that Rick Ross was featured on the album as well. An album that, mind you, was full of Drake disses. It was basically targeted at Drake, if you haven't picked up on that already. Ross's verse didn't have anything to do with Drake, but it may have been that tiny bit of allegiance that upset Drizzy, because shortly after that, Drake invited Rick Ross's ex-girlfriend Christina Mackey to his concert, and it was a fancy invite that she posted, which probably had Mr. Ross feeling some type of way. This is when people thought there was beef, and then it was confirmed not too long after. When Drake's song Push Ups leaked, he had some bars for Rick Ross. He said, "I might take your latest girl and cuff her like I'm Ricky. Can't believe he jumping in, he turning 50. Every song that made it on the chart he got from Drizzy. Spend that little check you got and stay about my business." So he briefly addressed Rick Ross, saying he took his girl, referenced Rick Ross's past as a correctional officer, and then said that every song on the charts that Rick has got has been from him. He didn't spend too much time on Rick Ross as there were many other people that he had to send shots at, but it was enough for Rick Ross to immediately get in the studio and respond to Drake in a full-length diss track. He said, "Ghostwriters, they get to floss what you could have had. Record label taking a loss, are you in your bag? You a worker wanting to chart, don't make me laugh." Here he directly addressed Drake's claims and said that because Drake outsources things like ghostwriters and has to pay for them, that the record label is probably taking a loss on his music. Ross continued later on saying, "Like his moves, but he never had to fight in school. Always ran, another person had to write your grooves. Flow is copy and paste, Weezy gave you the juice. Another white boy at the park wanna hang with the crew." In this line, he calls Drake soft again, saying he doesn't live the lifestyle he claims to have lived. And Ross also said that Drake just got his flow from Lil Wayne. On the hook, Ross called out Drake for leaking his diss track instead of speaking directly. But one of the most interesting things to happen on this track was in the outro when he accused Drake of wanting to be white, so he had a nose surgery to make his nose smaller than his dad's nose. The nose accusation actually had Drake's mom texting him asking, "The internet is saying you got a nose job?" To which he responded, "It's coming from Rick Ross, the guy I did songs with. He's gone loopy off the Moonjaro. He hasn't eaten in days and it's turned him angry and racist. He's performing at proms for money. It's bad. Don't worry, we'll handle it." And he also tagged Rick Ross saying, "You're one nosy goof." Then Rick Ross claimed that he unfollowed Drake because Drake sent a cease and desist to French Montana, which finally explained why the beef started in the first place. A lot of people were speculating that the song Splash Brothers from Mac and Cheese 5 by French Montana was supposed to have Drake on it because of a leak. There is a version of the song out right now with Rick Ross and Lil Wayne, but not one with Drake. So many people think that Drake sent a cease and desist so he wouldn't release it. Of course, we don't know the exact details. French Montana hasn't commented on the situation, but since Rick Ross said it and it doesn't really seem like something to lie about, it's likely that this is the reason why Rick Ross is beefing with Drake. Also, they've been arguing back and forth on Instagram talking about who's got the bigger mansion and stuff like that. Crazy rich people arguments I couldn't imagine relating to, but it's not super relevant to the beef. But all it tells us is that Drake doesn't take Rick Ross seriously enough to address him anymore in his songs. However, there are a few more artists that fans speculate have some beef with Drake right now. Like everyone else on this list, Kanye and Drake were friends early in Drake's career. There was a little bit of tension here and there, especially after a Kanye rant from 2016 when he said the radio plays too much Drake, but for the most part, everything seemed good. Until in 2018 when Pusha T's beef was heating up with Drake and Kanye had just produced Pusha T's album Daytona, that's when there seemed to be some issues. Drake thought Kanye, who had released multiple albums that year that he had produced, had them all come out to mess up the release of Drake's album Scorpion. Kanye apologized for this, but then released the infamous song Lift Yourself. This song is funny because Drake said he liked the beat, so Kanye wasted it by saying things like poop diddy scoop on the song and releasing it. Then Kanye got mad at Drake for allegedly sneak dissing him on sicko mode and apparently threatening his family. There's some more petty stuff in 2021 and then even more in 2023 when Drake sampled Kim Kardashian, Kanye's ex-wife, on his song Search and Rescue. There have been a lot of rumors that Kim and Drake have been dating, but there isn't any confirmation. People also saw videos of Kim K at some Drake shows and have theorized some of his lyrics have been about her, which also could have upset Kanye. Over the years, Drake has sent many subliminals, and Kanye has gone on plenty of rants about Drake. So basically, their beef is over a bunch of pretty petty stuff, which isn't very surprising considering both of their personalities. And I wasn't going to include Kanye in this video until he recently inserted himself in the Drake dissing tag team by remixing the song that started it all, Like That.
That's what it is. But I did do this Like That remix though. I think that's what you was wanting to lead into and shit. Let me see.
You got the Like That remix. I don't believe Gay jumped on the Like That remix.
You know we had to get the hooligans up here. We gonna take this pussy nigga out. Yo, Dot, I got you. And as I'm tired of this nigga fucking with me and all this shit, man. So the fact that these niggas is coming together finally, because it's not just about the elimination of Drake. You know, it's like. Right. Like, we're gonna tear the head off whoever they got that they thought was in control of all this.
Kanye said on his remix, "It's a rap for people. Where's Lucien? Serve your master. You caught a little bag for your masters, didn't you? Lifetime deal, I feel bad." Kanye said this because he isn't with the label anymore, but Drake is still working under UMG, whose CEO is Lucien Grange, which directly claps back at what Drake said about Kendrick dropping for Top. So it's crazy to see yet another person who doesn't like Drake jumping in on the beef. So now I think everyone is just waiting for Pusha T to jump back in. J. Cole also caught a stray on this song, which was tough, and he also posted this meme about J. Cole, so I feel pretty bad for him now. Now we are going to get into some people who are thought to have beef with Drake, although I personally don't think these are very likely, starting with J. Cole. So if you're somehow unaware still, Drake and J. Cole are pretty tight as of late. They just recently collabed on First Person Shooter and got off tour like a week ago, which makes it very unlikely that they're beefing. However, J. Cole did surprisingly feature on Metro and Future's We Still Don't Trust You on the song Red Leather, which made a lot of people think that J. Cole switched sides. But his verse had nothing to do with the beef, and neither did the song. Many people do think that Drake is the type to get in his feelings about this, but I highly doubt that Drake is upset, as they were literally on tour together as the song dropped. Another person people think has beef with Drake is Travis Scott, in part because he also featured on We Don't Trust You. And despite his verse lacking any disses to Drake, some people saw this video of Drake fake shooting a Travis Scott head at his show and thought it meant he had problems with him. In reality though, he was performing one of the songs he has with Travis Scott, and has been doing this for the entire tour. Also, in Drake's diss, he literally shouted out Travis. So again, it's not very likely that they have beef, but it is possible that he may have some type of animosity towards Nav. After Like That dropped and Rick Ross unfollowed Drake, so did Nav. Shortly after that, Drake posted a picture on Instagram with the caption, "I'm picking up, I'm in Turk's Lil Baby," which is a quote from Nav's song Turks. There hasn't been anything that happened since then though, so we can't be sure if there's actually any beef. Nav didn't even hop on We Still Don't Trust You, so we really have no idea what's going on. Regardless, it's clear that Drake has upset a lot of people in the industry. At least Drake had some dignity and some fans in his beef, because these next ones were just flat out embarrassing. Starting off with Diggy Simmons versus J. Cole. Diggy Simmons is the son of Reverend Run, one of the founding members of Run DMC. He had the spotlight on him ever since he was a child because he started his acting career, and while he did have some success of his own in music, one of his most notable moments was his beef with J. Cole, which in my opinion might have been one of the most embarrassing in hip-hop history. Keep in mind, Diggy started his music career while he was still really young, so this beef kicked off when he was just 17. Some tensions started to build up after J. Cole released two songs, Purple Rain in 2010 and Grew Up Fast in 2011. Diggy took offense to the lyrics in both songs, which were seemingly directed towards his older sister, Vanessa Simmons. In Purple Rain, Cole describes a relationship with her when he says, "Good girl, huh? Father was a preacher. Sent her off to college, thought he got her on a leash though. From outside, man, them girls be the squeakiest. You get him inside, them girls be the freakiest." Apparently, Cole and Vanessa went to St. John's University together, so that in combination with the fact that her father was a preacher led fans and Diggy to assume that Cole was talking about her. However, Vanessa has denied ever having that sort of relationship with Cole during college. But then, when Cole name-dropped Diggy and Vanessa on Grew Up Fast, things escalated quickly. He said, "Move along, cocksucker, ain't nothing to see. Unless you talking blockbusters, you guys is not Russell. You more Diggy. Me, I'm more Biggie. No diss to the young boy, I'm just rapping. Get bored quickly." And a bit later in the song, he says, "What up, Vanessa? I loved you that one semester." Diggy pretty obviously had enough of all the comments on his family, so he decided to put out his own diss. I mean, I'd be pretty mad too if someone was rapping about knocking down my sister. Anyways, Diggy's track was titled What You Say to Me and addressed all the rumors. He says, "The other day I was listening to Purple Rain. Couldn't believe all the things I heard him say. Heard you lying on my sis, telling people that you hit. When your album drops, I'ma hit you with your brick. So I'ma bomb first on you since you wanna riff." The diss track got a lot of attention and left many people wondering if it was an April Fool's joke, since it was kind of odd for a young Diggy Simmons to be going after J. Cole. However, as it turns out, the song was actually recorded a year prior and only got out because it had leaked. However, the song leaking is a bit of a strange coincidence, since the track was leaked just 1 week after Diggy dropped his debut album to not much success. Then Diggy's dad, Reverend Run, backed up his son on Twitter saying, "J. Cole puts out 2 records dissing family and Diggy and nobody cared. Someone leaks an old Diggy record and there's a problem." Diggy also further explained everything shortly after this on an interview.
But they didn't even really know each other like that, so it wasn't like that. And then, she also told me, that he subliminally, also talked about, like her in a song called Purple Rain, which was also false.
Okay.
And so, it was just like, me sticking up for my family. That's all it really was. And like I said, that's my sister,
Right.
If you feel a certain, exactly, over everything, that's how I felt.
At this point, Vanessa again publicly denied the rumors when she tweeted, "Okay, enough with the fuckery on my timeline now. Our brothers are protective over us because guys stay lying. More importantly, that shit never happened." And after all of the Twitter drama, it seemed like things were starting to cool down.
This song for J. Cole, you guys allegedly pieced it up. How did that conversation go?
I didn't even put it out. That leaked. But it was just like, he came up to me and he was just like, it's all good. I didn't even mean it in that way. Like, none of that even happened, and I wasn't saying that I was doing any of that. That song that I made before he even made that song, that had my name in it. So, I mean, it was whatever. I wasn't really tripping over it.
However, half a year later, when Kendrick invited Cole on stage to perform with him, Cole dropped a line that many people thought was targeting Diggy. He says, "Picture me hating on a young guy with talent. Album flopped, but it's cool he caked out on his allowance," which is pretty funny because he's, you know, a Nepo baby. So in response, Diggy came back quick with his own diss track titled Fall Down, which was debuted on The Breakfast Club. Diggy rapped, "I guess I rattled you, Snaggletooth. You know better, thought J stood for Jermaine, not Jet Setter. You seen me and shook my hand, coppin' please in person. Now you act less than a man mentioning me in verses. You used to have dreams of my big sister kissing ya, now it's nightmares of her little brother dissing ya." By this point, Cole had only done some like subliminal low-key disses, didn't seem real into the beef, and he didn't even drop an entire diss track. But after Diggy had a leaked diss track and a released diss track, people were starting to make fun of him. They were clowning on him pretty hard because he kept going at Cole with multiple tracks that never got a response. And on top of that, Cole allegedly smashed his sister. Diggy tried to explain that he was only defending himself in an interview with ThisIs50.com when he said, "It wasn't me, man. He came first." But it was too late. The fans and even other artists fully turned on Diggy in the beef, making it out to be one of the lamest in recent years. Even Childish Gambino referenced the incident on his song Eat Your Vegetables when he said, "No one cares like it's J. Cole and Diggy." It started to become pretty obvious that Diggy was just using this beef to get more attention in the music industry. By not responding, Cole basically turned all of Diggy's weapons against him and perfectly summed up the situation when he went on to The Breakfast Club.
The Titanic, I'm joking, only provoking in hopes to go #1 again. Hoping some rapper disses me just to make this fun again. It's no fair. Pac had Mobb Deep and Biggie, and all I get left with is Tyrese and Diggy.
Oh, Jake, come on, man. Come on, Jay.
Breakfast Club.
I mean, I do feel bad for Diggy because 1, he was just a kid. 2, everyone was just absolutely clowning on him. And 3, Cole cracked his sister. So that's a pretty rough spot to be in. And believe it or not, Nick Cannon was in a very similar situation as Diggy in his beef with Eminem. Nick Cannon has done pretty much everything in the entertainment industry, including rapping, acting, hosting a show, comedy, and a bunch of other things. Probably his most notable show is Wild 'N Out. However, Nick also got into a beef with Eminem, which didn't end up so well for him. It all started over Mariah Carey, who Eminem has claimed to have dated for months, but she has always denied these claims on multiple occasions. Years after their alleged relationship, Nick Cannon came into the picture when he started dating Mariah and eventually married her. Because of this, Eminem dropped a song called Bagpipes from Baghdad in 2009. This track went pretty hard at both Mariah and her newly wedded husband Nick, alluding to Mariah's struggles with alcoholism. During the song, Eminem said a bunch of wild things, most of which were directed at the two. He said, "Nick Cannon better back the fuck up. I'm not playing. I want her back, you punk. Nick, you had your fun. I've come to kick you in your sack of junk. Man, I could use a fresh batch of blood. Nick Cannon, you prick. I wish you luck with the fucking whore. In the bed with 2 brain-dead lesbian vegetables, I bet you they become heterosexual. Nothing will stop me from molesting you. Lure the little boy with the chocolate Chips Ahoy chip cookie lookie even took me a Polaroid pic." Eminem says a lot of weird things. that cookie line was crazy, but regardless, this obviously upset Nick and Mariah. Immediately, a Twitter feud between Nick and Eminem began and got so heated that even Diddy and Dr. Dre had to step in. In the end, Nick posted a now-deleted Tumblr post saying he would be taking full action on you, Eminem. I don't know why no one has stood up to your bitch ass yet, but I guess it's going to take a corny, whack-rapping boy toy from Nickelodeon to set you straight. And trust, I'm going to be relentless. Even though I got a lot of other obligations and occupations, you are my new full-time job, homie. I asked myself, should I go find this bitch and just whoop his little ass? Let's not forget Eminem's amateur mixtape rants of calling African Americans the N-word and how he hates black bitches. How did we let him get away with that in the first place? He is a natural-born racist in disguise. Someone tell this coward that he finally barked up the wrong tree. Before Nick took full action like he said, his new wife Mariah, who at first stayed quiet, dropped her popular song Obsessed, which is a subtle diss against Eminem and his behavior. In the music video, a stalker appeared which heavily resembled Eminem, so it's really funny that this song is low-key an Eminem diss. However, a month later, Eminem dropped his response titled The Warning. This track had a similar vibe to the first diss and had a notable line acknowledging Mariah's track Obsessed when he said, "I got the same exact tat that's on Nick's back. I'm obsessed now. Oh gee, is that supposed to be me in the video with the goatee?" Nick responded positively at first by putting up some Bible quotes on social media, but he wasn't finished yet. And about a year later in 2010, dropped his own clapback titled I'm a Slick Rick. You could argue that Eminem's massively loyal fan base had a hand in this, but overall, the the public reaction was that the song was very bad and a comical excuse of a diss. Even 50 jumped in a few times commenting on the beef, as he normally does. Then Nick took things to another level and decided to challenge Eminem to a boxing match in a now deleted post where he said, "The time has come. Boys talk the talk, but men walk the walk." Nick has laid down the challenge to meet Eminem in the ring. However, not only did Eminem not respond to the boxing match, which wasn't that surprising, he also didn't even acknowledge Nick's "I'm Slick Rick" diss either. Usually, by not responding, you'd think that might be a sign of losing, but in Eminem's case, most people chalked it up to M being way too big to even worry about what Nick Cannon was saying on Twitter. As the years went by and Nick separated from Mariah, the guys appeared to have smoothed things over, with Eminem even being invited onto Nick's show Wild 'N Out. However, he never ended up appearing on the show, and this is where things start to get a bit embarrassing.
Last time I saw you, you were getting ready to battle Eminem. And I'm still ready. This is what I'm saying, Tim. I'm so glad that didn't happen. That would have been horrible. You're in the room, I'm writing for you, but that would have been horrible.
Yo, Tim.
To your face, I would have been there for you, but oh my God, what was he doing?
I'm trying to find him. Where is he?
At this point, the beef was already pretty one-sided, with Nick being the only one keeping it going. And so he appeared to have realized this and fell back for a bit. That was till a couple years later in 2019 when Nick would again bring up the beef during a podcast with T.I.
He didn't want to battle me. It could have went.
After Nick talked for years about this beef without Eminem saying a word, Eminem decided to respond on Fat Joe's song Lord Above. M said, "I know me and Mariah didn't end on a high note, but that other dude's whipped, that pussy got him neutered. Tried to tell him this chick's a nut job before he got his jewels clipped. Almost got my caboose kicked, fool quit, you not gonna do shit. I'd let her chop my balls off too for I lost to you, Nick." After this went viral, Nick played it on his show and started making fun of Eminem for his age. Nick said, "We should change his name from Eminem to like Percocet. What's the pill that old people take? We gonna call him Cialis. Bring your walker, get out your wheelchair, Eminem, and pop whatever you want to pop." Should I respond back to this? It's not worthy of a response. He also went further and posted online saying, "Fat Joe's album is fire. He even did some charity work and dug Eminem out of his grave. I mean, his cave." And he ended the post with another invitation on Wild 'N Out to Grandpa Marshall for a rap battle. But Eminem again did not respond to this, so Nick made another diss track called The Invitation. This time though, Nick came with some pretty serious accusations in his diss, including name-dropping Eminem's ex-wife and daughter, along with the past beef with Mariah when he said, "Call Kim, somebody get Haley, and that other kid you raising that ain't even your baby. My baby mama killed you off a decade ago. You still crying about it. Now who really the hoe?" Nick also even alleged that Eminem's chauffeur got a video of him giving another dude head, and Eminem very quickly took to Twitter with his response, shooting down all the scandalous rumors, especially about the chauffeur. Nick clapped back with his own tweet, and then that same month he dropped another diss titled "Pray for Him." And again, that same month as well, before Eminem even had a chance to respond, Nick dropped another diss called Cancelled Invitation. The music video contained a bunch of old clips where Eminem was saying some pretty rough stuff about the black and LGBTQ communities, and while the statements didn't look great on Eminem, I think most of the fans had already had enough of Nick Cannon, and like the comments on his other disses, everyone overwhelmingly clowned him. Nick basically dropped 3 diss tracks in a row with no response from Eminem except for a tweet, and he just started looking desperate for attention. And I think Nick realized this too, because in a 2022 interview with Hip Hop DX, he said, "I was a little overzealous, I was a little heavy-handed, and I was legitimately hot and wanted to fight and all. I was a different guy, so I was mad. But at the end of the day, I ain't going to stand for no disrespect either." So in hindsight, I probably would have been a little bit more strategic and let maybe 1 or 2 of them linger. But to me, I showed up with a cannon to a knife fight. So I think he still thinks he won, which is kind of crazy. There haven't been any updates on the situation since then, but after Nick dropped 3 diss tracks to no response all within the same month, I think it's safe to say who won that battle, but I'll leave that up to you guys to decide. But at least the situation never got physical, because when Rich the Kid beefed with Lil Uzi Vert, he didn't end up getting that lucky. Around 2018, Rich the Kid and Lil Uzi were both already pretty relevant. So when the 2 rappers started beefing, everyone took notice. But instead of a bunch of heated diss tracks back and forth, we got something a little bit different. In 2018, Uzi was posting about some label issues he was having with DJ Drama because he signed to his imprint, Generation Now. Uzi dropped some games saying, "And if y'all do sign to a major. Don't sign to a rapper or a DJ. It's just easier when the time comes for that fake shit." A couple of hours later, Rich the Kid replied, somewhat making fun of Uzi by saying, "That's why you should have signed with Rich forever." Uzi very quickly clapped back saying, "Boy, I'm not signing for 20 racks. Then 2 days later, Rich posted on his Instagram story sort of making fun of Uzi.
Hey man, your boss ain't treating you right, your CEO ain't treating you right, man. Come over to Rich Forever Music, you know what I'm saying? Come over to Rich Forever Music.
About a month later, after no response from Uzi, Rich took his offer back. And I don't even know if this was a real offer or not, but it just seemed like Rich was forcing a beef that wasn't even there in the first place.
Right? Yo, if Uzi didn't have a deal, would you sign him?
No.
Why not?
Not right now. Maybe back then.
Really?
Yeah.
Why not now?
Maybe I would sign him on my business, but not, you know what I'm saying, for personal reasons, I wouldn't sign him.
Yeah.
About a month later, Uzi came back with a pretty funny and unserious response, posting a picture with him and a crab, and the crab was tagged as Rich the Kid. Uzi had also recently dyed his hair green, and Rich the Kid had green hair, so he responded saying, "Oh, look at my son Lil Uzi Vert trying to look just like me." Things started to look especially bad for Rich when the next day he posted a snippet of a diss track on Uzi. In the preview, some lyrics directly tied to Uzi were, "Your money getting shorter," which is a jab at Uzi's track Money Longer. Then later in the song, there was a reference to EXO Tour Life, where he says, "All them dead friends, you a little middleman, you a little man." Again, while Uzi was seemingly trolling, it just looked like Rich was trying to force it. However, things began to simmer down for a while. That was only until months later, during the week of Rich the Kid's debut album release, when he decided to revisit the beef by fully releasing the Uzi diss track, Dead Friends. This was obviously a move to get a bunch of attention around the album drop, and a bold one at that, especially with what was depicted in the video that dropped later that month. But before the video was dropped, Uzi did respond with a verse on a G Herbo song. Uzi said, "Rich mad cause your ate my kids or something." And later, "I'm going mode, TY tell me when to go. Boy, you ain't rich, you a bitch." Rich called the response trash and went through with dropping the craziest music video for Dead Friends. In the video, an Uzi lookalike desperate to sign a record deal is jumped and then buried alive by Rich and his crew. At the same time, Rich also released a remix of 3 6 Mafia's Who Run It track, which included several disses aimed at Uzi. On top of this, in following weeks, Rich continued to keep the beef alive, yelling stuff out at concerts like, "That guy a little Uzi, man." By this point, again, Uzi didn't seem that serious because someone asked him about the beef and Uzi said, "Bless Rich and his family." Again, he could have been trolling, but at the end of the day, Uzi was not taking this too serious. For about a month, nothing really came from either side. At least that was until they ran into each other while they were both in Philly performing for the Roots picnic. Basically what happened was Uzi and his crew pulled up on Rich and his crew, seemingly trying to talk things out at first.
Hey, you mother friend. I know friend. I know where you at. I know you at, friend. I know you at, friend. But you know, what we doing? Friend. No, it's not. I'm trying to find out. You jumped out the car. It don't matter why you acting crazy, bro. I don't have nothing to say about this.
Many fans pointed out how Uzi was standing there all by himself while Rich was hiding behind his security. After this though, things started to get intense. First, when things got heated, Rich and his crew just took off. Then Uzi and his crew found Rich at a Starbucks where he was hiding and hands started flying. At one point after the altercation, Rich even resorted to jumping behind the counter with workers at the coffee shop. And finally, after the scuffle, you can see Uzi get back in the whip and ride away. Everything seemed to happen really fast with tons of different people from different angles recording it. Rich immediately hopped online to show off that he and his jewelry were unscathed during the altercation, saying,
Niggas pulled up and did what? Did what? Walk around Philly like this.
Regardless, this resulted in the entire internet making fun of Rich the Kid, especially since Uzi's like 5'2" and just ran his ass down.
Yeah, today for Monday, June 4th, goes to Rich Homie the Kid. Now, if you old like me, then you'll contend.
Rich the Kid, man.
Okay, I'm old. Now we are getting to the reason that the homie Rich is getting donkey today. See, somebody swung at Rich, and it looked like they connected, and he immediately jumped behind the counter at Starbucks and started to make a triple mocha frappuccino. Now, maybe he didn't think we were gonna see the footage of him jumping behind the counter to make an iced Starbucks blonde cold foam cappuccino, and to avoid the wrath of the sassy savage Lil Uzi. Look, Rich Quan. In life, you have to live your truth. When you live your truth, nobody can use your truth against you. I mean, truth is that video of Uzi swinging on you and you jumping behind the counter will be used against you. But when you get online and lie, all witnessed, you get punked by the sassy savage Little Uzi. So please give Rich the Quan Homie the Kid the biggest hee-haw.
His name is Rich the Kid. It's Rich the Kid.
I give up on telling him.
Rich Homie Quan and Rich the Kid. Two different people.
If you say so.
But then for the years following, we wouldn't hear anything about this. Eventually though, it seemed like the beef was squashed, and Rich spoke about it in an interview.
Rich, I'm just gonna straight ask you, man, where is you and Uzi Vert's relationship now?
No, we ain't got no beef. We straight. We cool.
So overall, it seemed like throughout the entire beef, Rich was more about the smoke, but when things came in person, he ran and was chased off by the 5'4" little Uzi Vert, which amongst everything else, including the lying about it online and all that, none of this was a good look for Rich the Kid. And while Rich the Kid got bitched by a little dude, Ice-T got trolled super hard by a very young Soulja Boy. Back in 2007, Soulja Boy blew up from his song Crank That at the young age of just 17. While he had some really catchy songs that performed very well, he also got a lot of hate, especially from the genre's OGs. And while Soulja's been notorious for having tons of beef, none of his other ones were so iconic that they ended up getting their own Boondocks parody. Apparently it all started when Ice-T was in the studio working on a mixtape. When T got into the booth, some guys he was with started throwing shade, claiming people don't want to hear his stuff anymore, and that they'd rather listen to new artists like Soulja Boy. So obviously he was frustrated, and T let out a pretty funny rant that he had no intentions of actually releasing.
Black Ice, Ice-T, Silver the Navigator, fuck Soulja Boy, eat a dick. This nigga single-handedly killed hip-hop. Soulja Boy, let me talk about Soulja Boy. Soulja Boy, I know you're young enough to be my kid, but you single-handedly kill hip-hop, man. That shit's garbage. And Hurricane, take them fucking beads out your fucking hair, kid. Come on, man up, you niggas. Stop bullshitting. You niggas is making me feel real fucking mad about this shit.
However, unknown to Ice-T, his now ex-associates included the entire rant as the intro track on the mixtape, which went very viral. And since Soulja Boy was not only new to the game but also 17, he felt the need to respond to Ice-T with his own rant. The video starts with Soulja and his boys watching the Ice-T diss. Then about 30 seconds in, Soulja cuts the clip off and starts going in on Ice-T for his age.
Okay, we came up.
Man, fuck all that. Look at here. This nigga Ice-T old as fuck, man. This nigga old enough to be my great grandfather. He's the forefather of my nuts, nigga. This nigga. Hey, was born, man. Hey, we Wikipedia this nigga. This nigga was born in 1958.
Throughout his response, Soulja said a bunch of different things like making fun of him for being old, making fun of him for repping the West Coast while being from New Jersey, and appearing in Law & Order as a cop while being on songs like Cop Killer. There was one part that was especially funny where Soulja got confused and said that Ice-T made NWA's song F the Police, which that was Ice Cube, not Ice-T. Regardless, he threw a 7-minute long barrage of disses, so he was bound to mess up at some point.
How you gonna make a song called Fuck the Police 35 years later, your ass playing the police on TV? Law and Order.
Soulja did claim that it wasn't beef and that he respects Ice-T as a legend, but the things T said forced him to respond. He also explained that in music, you have to adapt to the times because if you don't, you'll fall behind. Soulja was saying that Ice-T, who wasn't doing so great commercially at the time, was just hating on an up-and-comer. Overall, when Soulja wasn't just clowning on Ice, he did make some good points, which appeared to resonate well with the audience, and the situation started looking kind of bad on T.
At the end of this video, though, the point that we're trying to get across with, man, you was wrong for that, man. Think about it in my shoes, man. This time last year, I was poor as fuck. I was in the hood. I was in the ghetto. If what you living is true, you will understand where I'm coming from. Nigga, I wasn't born rich, nigga. I wasn't born in no big ass house like this. Nigga, I worked to get it. I'm 17 years old, dog. Nigga, I worked hard for this shit. You feel me? Even if it was all this got me out for one song, you should be congratulating. You should be congratulating. Real talk. You should be telling me, congratulations, young brother, get your money. That's what you be saying. That's what you should be saying instead of eat a dick.
In the closing part of his rant, Soulja said that if Ice-T thinks hip-hop is dying, he should do something to save it instead of just on the genre's new stars. By this point, believe it or not, 17-year-old Soulja Boy actually looked to be a bit more mature, which you would never expect. However, nobody expected Ice-T's response either.
Hey, what's up? It's Iceberg, man. I want to reply to all this internet drama that's going down, you know what I'm saying? I said something about this kid Soulja Boy while doing a mixtape, you know. The cats took it, you know, they basically were asking me how I felt about it, you know, the state of hip-hop and Soulja Boy, and I went on one. You know what I'm saying? So I apologize, Soulja Boy, for telling you to eat a dick. That was just in anger. You understand? Because truthfully, You know, a brother of my caliber shouldn't be talking down on a youngster your age.
So opening with an apology was a bit of a weird move, but it made a little more sense after T clearly realized he's too big and too old probably to be beefing with Soulja Boy. Ice-T also doubled down saying that Soulja's music was garbage, and he did say that he shouldn't have said what he said, but he also said Soulja shouldn't have responded. He continued by kind of threatening Soulja Boy, claiming that the West Coast, the OGs, and all of hip-hop will go after him if he goes back at Ice-T. Overall, the video didn't really help his case and just made him look a bit worse. And what Soulja Boy did was really funny, because instead of responding with a diss track or some strong words, he put out a animated video on YouTube. Soulja Boy might have been the first rapper to troll another rapper on the internet.
Hey yo G, this Ice-T. If you 50 years and older, you might remember me. But to everybody 49 years old and younger, I'm Ice-T. Dinosaur turned gangster rapper. You know, cop killer turned cop.
Most viewers thought this response was pretty funny, especially with how serious Ice-T was being beforehand, but eventually the beef just fizzled out. The situation was so talked about that even the Boondocks made a parody episode about the beef.
Now what about Sergeant Gutter? Man, Sergeant Gutter, that nigga can eat a dick. Hold on, wait up. Wow.
Fuck this old ass nigga, man. This old nigga is old enough to be my dad, and he telling me to eat a dick? Nigga, what's wrong with you? You a grown ass man, and you telling a 15-year-old to eat a dick? I know your mother raised you better than that, dog. Matter of fact, excuse me, is this Miss Jenkins? Yes, it is. My name is Sergeant Gutter. And I don't know if you aware, but your son said some very rude things about me on the radio.
Yes, I know. He said some very rude things. He's too old to be acting like that, and I know I don't like him using that language either.
I don't know why the first clip is so low res, my apologies, but you guys get the point. Eventually, everything fizzled out, but in 2014, Ice-T finally reflected further on the beef with DJ Vlad. In this interview, he mostly explained how the beef was never meant to be personal.
And I just felt that they were taking the bar so low on hip-hop, not just that kid, but other kids too, that I was like, yo, man, we worked so hard to get this to this point. Let's keep it fly. It wasn't a direct thing on this kid, because I only heard probably one record. I don't even know. I kind of regret it. I said it because it turned me into a person that seemed like I wanted beef. And that's really not my style. You know, people felt I got up out of the bed and went in on him.
It seemed like he genuinely realized that he had made some mistakes and regretted it. So in the end, it looks like long-term, no one's career was really negatively affected by this, but at the time, things did not look great for Ice-T when he was definitely punching down on a new artist. I want to put out a honorable mention in this video for Ja Rule and 50 Cent. Most of their beef wasn't that funny or embarrassing or whatever you want to call it, but I will say, in 2018, when 50 Cent allegedly bought 200 front row seats to ensure that Ja Rule's show would be empty in the front, that was pretty funny and didn't look so great for Ja Rule. Not all music industry beefs are this pathetic though, and sometimes you'll see two titans of industry clash, like we saw in many of Michael Jackson's beefs. When you think about Michael Jackson, you probably think of a soft-spoken, charitable, and kind artist, and while all of that may be true, what a lot of people don't realize is that he could be a little cutthroat, especially when it came to beefs and business, which inevitably led to him having some serious back and forths with his fellow artists, with some labeling him cold as ice. So join me today as we look into the many beefs of Michael Jackson. When Michael Jackson and Eminem beefed, it was pretty surprising. Not only because they're some of the biggest names in the music industry, but also because of the weird ways they went about taking shots at one another. Em and Mike's relationship had its first road bump back in 2003. This is when Em was in Glasgow for a show, where at his hotel with tons of paparazzi watching, he dangled and tossed around a baby doll out of his window. Without context, you're probably wondering, what does that have to do with Michael? Well, a few months earlier, MJ was in Berlin for an awards ceremony, and for whatever reason, he dangled his 8-month-old son out the window. Mike faced some obvious backlash for this terrible mistake, which led to him eventually apologizing, saying, "I got caught up in the excitement of the moment. I would never intentionally endanger the lives of my children." This is a weird thing to do regardless of excitement. Maybe he was just trying to show the kid off to the crowd. That could be it. I don't know. But what's important is that it was a pretty bad public moment for Michael, which he took a decent amount of criticism for. And that's why Eminem mocked him. So you could see how this would start a bit of a rift between Michael and Em, who weren't even friends before any of this. But Eminem decided to take it a step further. In 2004, Eminem dropped the song Just Lose It as the lead single for his album Encore. Along with the song was a music video which had multiple scenes clearly But it wasn't just the video that stirred things up, because when you look into the lyrics, M goes at Mike with some pretty wild subliminals. Early in the song's intro, M says, "Alright, stop, pajama time." This isn't just some MC Hammer pun. He's instead referring to the 2003 Michael Jackson documentary Living with Michael Jackson, in which Mike discussed letting kids sleep in his bed. And throughout the rest of Just Lose It, M continued to take more digs at Michael and his case, saying things like, "Guess who's back with a brand new rap?" And I don't mean rap as in a new case of child molestation accusations. I done touched on everything but little boys, and that's not a stab at Michael, that's just a metaphor. I'm just a psycho. Obviously, the Michael Jackson allegations were a huge thing at the time, and while eventually he was found not guilty, Eminem making fun of this probably didn't make him feel so good. Apparently, Michael tried to get the song banned at first, but that didn't end up working, so he eventually spoke on how he felt about the bold jokes made at his expense.
I've never met Mr. Eminem, and to have him, I've always admired him, and to have him do something like that was pretty painful as an artist to another artist. And it's sad because, well, I think what Stevie Wonder said is true. And I just don't want to say too much more than that. But he should be ashamed of himself, what he's doing. I've never attacked another fellow artist. Great artists don't do that. You know, you don't have to do that.
Michael was clearly frustrated by the song, understandably so, and in response to Michael's frustration, Eminem was actually honored and explained the whole reason behind Just Lose It's creation.
Yeah, that wasn't intentional, but I'm just happy that Michael Jackson has heard of me. You know?
That's the kind of cool side of it.
The fact that he's heard of me is you know, that does me enough. But like the personal things, you know, that was not planned. It was making no personal judgment on Michael Jackson. It was not, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was completely meant to be all in jest.
The beef up until this point was pretty one-sided, and after this, it went pretty silent. That was until in 2007 when things subtly reignited behind the scenes with Michael's Sony ATV publishing partnership. This group already owned a significant amount of projects for major artists, but then they secured Viacom's famous music catalog for $370 million, which included a lot of Eminem's back catalog. Some fans theorized that this was all a part of Michael's get back for Just Lose It. While the purchase of famous music included some famous names like Shakira, Eminem was considerably one of the most valuable, with hits like Without Me and The Real Slim Shady now being owned by Michael's publishing partnership. A lot of people like to make it seem like Michael Jackson just kind of went out there and bought only Eminem's catalog, which was not the case. So even if the move wasn't meant as direct revenge, it's still a pretty funny and wild way to end the beef. And like I said, there isn't really any concrete evidence that the purchase was made solely to spite M, but it has become a trend for Michael to buy the music of those he beefed with, because he did it again to Paul McCartney of the Beatles. Unlike with Eminem, Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson actually started out as friends. In the early 70s, they first started working together, with Paul somewhat taking Mike under his wing. As the years went by, the two continued collaborating, eventually growing so close that Michael would stay with Paul and his wife while recording in London. In the early 80s, they recorded multiple songs together, including Say 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 and The Girl Is Mine, which is one of my personal favorites from the two, which both ended up going platinum.
Michael originally fancied writing some stuff with me, and I thought it was a good idea. So he came over here to England, and we just hung out for a little while and got to know each other a bit, and ended up writing 2 songs.
One night at dinner while Michael was living with Paul in London, the two started talking about publishing and song ownership. During this conversation, Paul took out a notebook which had a list of all of the songs he owned publishing rights to.
I said, you got to get a really good manager, because it's all going to be coming in and it could all go out if you don't. And I said, and you ought to think of getting into song publishing.
For a business, you ought to think about music publishing. It's because it's very good business. You love music. I'm into it. It does very well. It's a nice, easy business for a musician to be in. And it's a very rewarding business, because it's music, it's songs, beautiful songs.
He was trying to tell Michael that investing in music catalogs and publishing rights was the right thing to do. It was a smart investment. And Michael took this advice to heart, in the same conversation even insisting that he would buy Paul's music one day. However, as bold as it sounded, Michael wasn't joking, and it ended up being one of the best financial moves he ever made. At this time, Paul was pretty deep into the music publishing investment game. He owned a bunch of songs and catalogs. He learned this the hard way though, after being almost forced to sell the rights to the Beatles music in the 60s. This was due to a tax problem in Britain at the time, and to avoid paying about 90% on their earnings. So to dodge this, he created Northern Songs Ltd. and later took the company public. While this was a smart move at the time, the decision ended up turning bad in 1969, when the Beatles publisher sold their shares of the company to Britain's Associated Television, also known as ATV. Sound familiar? None of the Beatles members or any other shareholders of Northern Songs were aware of this sale or even able to prevent it regardless. When they did eventually find out about it, counterbid attempts were made, but in the end failed, which means not only did they lose the majority of their company, but they also lost the publishing rights to their music. The whole ordeal ended up becoming an example in the industry of why you should never sell your music's publishing rights, a lesson which Michael learned a lot from himself. Throughout the next few years, Michael started buying up decent sized catalogs across the industry, at first passing up on most of the options presented to him, only buying music which he had an affection for. But when Michael's career really started taking off, he had a ton more money to play with, which led to him diving deeper into the publishing game. Eventually in 1985, Michael's team approached him about the massive ATV catalog being up for sale, asking if he wanted to make an offer. Initially, he was only buying copyrights, but the ATV package came with a bunch more, including studios, equipment, and even life insurance policies, which was common for publishers to take out on their biggest artists, one of which was for Paul. Apparently, over the years, Paul had made some weak attempts to bid for ATV, but never anything worth considering. It's believed that Paul just really wanted his music and not the thousands of other songs and things that it came with. However, since the Beatles tracks made up a significant portion of the catalog's value, it was hard for ATV to agree to selling one without the other. And eventually, Michael decided to buy ATV Publishing for $47.5 million, which officially granted him ownership to thousands of songs, including 251 Beatles songs. When Paul became aware of this, he was pretty pissed off at Michael, and he said, "I think it's dodgy to do something like that, to be someone's friend and then buy the rug they're standing on." Michael allegedly tried to call Paul many times to talk things out, but in his frustration, Paul hung up every time. As more time passed, Michael used the Beatles songs in numerous projects, profiting significantly off the publishing rights. In response, Paul reached out a bunch and tried to prevent this, arguing that the music being used in commercials and other things cheapened it. But Michael continued saying that, oh, it will only make the music bigger and more people will hear it and give you more exposure. In 1990, Michael and Paul finally met to discuss their problems.
But I do intend to have a word with him. I spoke to him in LA, actually. You did? Yeah, and said, look, we've got to come to a good understanding here, because there are a number of things I don't like about how he runs the company. In our case, the trouble is, like the Nike thing that came up, I don't know if you heard about that, but the trouble is that we never did do commercials. With the Beatles, we had all those offers.
Paul said to Michael that he was basically tricked into selling his copyrights while he was young, and now he feels betrayed that his old friend is using this mistake to profit off his music. Michael was claiming that he didn't mean to hurt anyone by doing this, and he was confused. Shortly after this, Paul's attorney reached out to Michael's team and stated that the two artists agreed that Paul's royalties for his music would be increased. However, when Michael's team asked him if this was true, Michael shot this down, saying they never agreed on it. And in response, Paul's team threatened to sue. Apparently, behind the scenes, Michael felt that Paul had many chances to buy his music back, but passed on them because he was too cheap. So now that he owns them and Paul has a problem with it, Michael believed he had no duty to make things right, which I don't know. From my perspective, look, I love Michael Jackson, he's dope, but that seems a little snaky, I'll be honest. Years later in 2001, Paul said, "So we haven't talked and we don't have that great a relationship. The trouble is I wrote those songs for nothing, and buying them back at these phenomenal sums, I just can't do it." To which Michael responded, "Oh Paul, that's just business." I love picturing him saying that in his voice. That's so funny. This sentiment continued for years as Paul held a reasonable resentment towards Michael. Eventually, when he tragically passed, Sony/ATV purchased the final shares in a deal with Michael's family worth $750 million. Since Michael's passing, Paul has expressed that he no longer holds much anger about the situation anymore. While he still believes his initial response was valid, there's obviously no point in pursuing it any further. And in the end, in 2018, Paul was able to start getting a bunch of his music back from Sony/ATV through some legal loopholes following a lawsuit and a private legal settlement. So at the end of the day, it's kind of crazy. Paul got his publishing rights back like half a century later. This feud was very public and very direct, but Michael's beef with Prince was a lot more subliminal and spurred on by fans. While Michael Jackson dominated the music game for years, it's hard to talk about pop in the 80s without bringing up Prince. Both artists contributed to the genre in major ways. Throughout their respective solo careers, the two artists rose in step with each other, growing in an almost parallel way. In some cases, they both even dropped projects at the exact same time. Although while their release schedule and rise was pretty similar, the content of their character and music was pretty contrasted. One fan said about Prince, "He was always more risque and always pushed boundaries." Prince is indirectly why there is a parental advisory label on music with profanity. And they continued on with Michael saying, "Michael Jackson was a star as a child. He was a lead singer of one of the biggest acts in music during the 70s. Therefore, he basically has two careers, one as a child and one as an adult. Michael Jackson was probably the greater entertainer. Funny enough, the two were born in the same year, only months apart, and both grew up in the Midwest. Surprisingly though, with all of these parallels, the two didn't get along very well. They ran into each other for the first time at the 1983 New Year's Eve James Brown concert, a legend that both young stars looked up to. For context, around this time the media had already been heavily pitting the two against one another, and at this show, James inevitably invited Michael up on stage to perform some of his songs. But since Michael wasn't the only star in the room, Michael whispered in James' ear and dared him to invite Prince on stage. Prince accepted and performed with his own little bit of flair. This was the first and the last time that Michael and Prince ever shared a stage. And after watching, you probably think there's not much negative to point out, especially since Prince clearly had the crowd screaming, even if he didn't sing that much. But when you look at the details, a bunch of things actually went wrong. Apparently his guitar was malfunctioning, and when Prince attempted to swing on the prop light pole, the entire thing fell into the crowd. Again, this doesn't seem too bad, but since it was at a major event in front of his idol, you could see how it felt a bit embarrassing. To make matters worse, Michael, who invited him on stage, mocked Prince relentlessly for this performance. And as a result, according to Quincy Jones, Prince even attempted to run Michael over with his car after the show, which, if that's true, is crazy. Their beef intensified further when Prince declined an invite from Michael to appear on the recording of the We Are the World charity single. So in the following year, Quincy Jones attempted to end the beef by setting up a collaboration between Michael and Prince on the song Bad. However, Prince again decided to turn down the offer. After the fact, Prince decided to explain to Chris Rock why he did that.
This is the story of you turning down Bad.
Well, you know, that Wesley Snipes character, that would have been me. All right, now you run that video in your mind. So,
in response to this and other sneak disses, Michael said in a later released audio recording for his 1988 Moonwalk memoir, "I don't like to be compared to Prince at all. I have proven myself since I was real little. He feels like he's my opponent. I hope he changes because, boy, he's gonna get hurt. He's the type that might commit suicide or something." Mike added on saying, "He was so rude, one of the rudest people I've ever met. Prince is very competitive. He has been very mean and nasty to me and my family," which is one of the few direct confrontations of this beef. In the following years, the two continued to have little run-ins here and there, with Michael repeating his attempts to bury the hatchet and Prince also repeating his denials. It wasn't until Michael's death that Prince appeared to experience a change of heart. After hearing about Michael's passing, Prince allegedly canceled rehearsal and went home, where he locked himself in his room for days. In further interviews, he spoke on this, saying, "It's always sad to lose someone you loved. I don't want to talk about it. I'm too close to it." And in tribute, he even started performing a cover of Michael's Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. Then later in 2016, Prince also tragically died very young, with some of his close friends expressing sadness that the two stars, Michael Jackson and Prince, never realized how much they had in common before it was too late. And while this is a sad story, it's almost more sad to hear that Michael had a pretty serious beef with his own brother. Michael Jackson got his start in music through the Jackson 5, a band made up of him and his brothers Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, and Marlon, managed by their father Joe Jackson. The group experienced a lot of success, and from the outside it seemed like everything was great, but that was far from the case. Inside the group existed a growing rivalry and power dynamic fueled by sibling jealousy, and eventually it even led to a brother-on-brother diss track. At first, Michael's older brother Jermaine was the Jackson 5's lead singer, until their mom noticed that Michael had a lot of talent, so eventually he was promoted to lead singer, which you might think, oh man, now they're gonna hate each other, that's where it all started. But they were still super close.
I was the lead singer first. When he started singing and he started watching James Brown and Joe Tex and all these people and Sammy Davis and Jackie Wilson, it was over. He could watch something and do it, and that's how he patterned himself.
Jermaine and Michael grew especially close due to the pairing of their unique voices attracting a large following. A big part of the Jackson 5 doing well was because of both Michael and Jermaine's talent. In a similar way to Michael and Prince, problems arose though when record labels tried to pin the two brothers against each other by pushing for them to produce solo projects. Even with this, the two were still tight. While their bond was strong, Michael quickly grew in popularity, noticeably eclipsing his brothers. And even with the marketing team at Motown Records pushing each brother for their unique personalities and roles in the band, Michael always got the most shine. During many of the press events is when the rivalry really started to get pushed, especially following the release of Michael and Jermaine's first solo album. Around this time, reporters asked the brothers playfully if one of them thought they were better than the other.
Did you and Michael get together and say, oh, look, you know, I'm number one this week and you're number one next week?
No, well, he's
The timing was just perfect. His album was out before mine, and mine came out.
Right.
I guess we both hit the charts at the same time.
And at times they even asked more direct questions like when Mike is going solo and he's going to leave the Jackson 5 altogether. And I always find it slimy how the media likes to pit people against each other, especially when it's brothers. And despite this, their rivalry still seemed lighthearted.
Once a act gets so big, there's so many people that come around, the legal people and everyone, and they sort of almost pull you away. So it's important for us to continue to be a family and to stay together, because divide and conquer.
Mike even said about Jermaine, growing up, it was Jermaine I focused on. He'd walk me to school, I'd get his hand-me-down clothes. It was his voice I first imitated. I loved his sound, he showed me the way. But even when the bond seemed unbreakable, eventually the two would drift apart. Jermaine went on to marry the daughter of the Motown Records founder, which on the surface doesn't seem bad. But the problem is, around this time, the Jackson 5 decided to split from Motown. This was due to the group being dealt an extremely unfair deal, which left them with a shockingly small amount of royalties. So they instead went over to Epic Records where they got a better deal. And this caused a problem because Jermaine decided to stay with Motown. He officially split from his brothers and his spot was filled by his younger brother Randy. In reflection of this split, Jermaine later said, "The sense of detachment and loneliness was profound. I didn't feel like I had lost my right arm. I felt like I had lost every limb. I had Hazel Gordy, of course, but the brotherhood was intrinsic to who I was and everything I knew. When it was ripped away, I felt something tear." And Michael had a similar sentiment, saying, "I clearly remember the first show we did without him because it was so painful for me. Since my earliest days on stage, and even in our rehearsals in our Gary living room, Jermaine stood at my left with his bass. I depended on being next to Jermaine. In the end though, Brotherhood won, and Jermaine rejoined the Jackson 5. This time though, they had to go by the Jacksons since Motown legally owned the name the Jackson 5. Despite the two being reunited though, they began leaning more into their solo careers. Jermaine did well for himself, generating a strong amount of popularity, but Michael's growth obviously was on a whole nother level. And by the end of the 80s, Michael had claimed his throne as the king of pop. On the other hand, Jermaine signed a deal with Clive Davis and never seemed to peak like Michael did. And when looking back, the bitter truth came out. Michael allegedly always thought he was smarter, worked harder, and was more talented than his older brother. On the flip side, Jermaine always felt that Michael's timing is what made him the king of pop. Jermaine said, looking back, "That was supposed to be me. That's why I stayed at Motown. We had plans, but once Michael beat me to it, he made sure it would only be him." Up until this point, most of the resentment was unspoken, at least until 1991, when things turned ugly. Jermaine began working on an album with Babyface and L.A. Reid. Michael found out about this and coincidentally called Babyface in L.A. requesting a meeting. He even sent a helicopter to fly the two record moguls out to Neverland. Jermaine found out about this meeting and immediately requested to be released from his label, claiming that Michael was tricking Babyface and L.A. in order to sabotage his career. Apparently, when Babyface and L.A. arrived at Neverland, Michael said he had no clue who they were, confusing them for Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Regardless, Michael kept them busy for about a week, leading them on with music that was never actually going to happen. Apparently, Babyface and L.A. brought up Jermaine's frustration to Michael, and they said that he couldn't care less. L.A. Reid remembers the conversation going something like this. "He'll get over it," Michael said. "That's not really the problem," L.A. said. "The problem was that he wants off the label now." "Did he sign a contract?" asked Michael. "Yes," L.A. said. "Then he'll have to live with it because those are the rules," Michael said and walked out. That Michael Jackson was one shrewd man. He was not wrong, but you didn't expect that from Peter Pan. You expect a little compassion or something. No. Cold as ice. And after about a week, Babyface and LA returned home to continue their work with Jermaine. While there isn't concrete evidence proving Michael's point was to delay his brother's work, many fans and people connected to the situation believe it was the case. Especially Jermaine, who when LA and Babyface got back to Atlanta, decided he was going to make a diss track on his own brother. The vicious track was titled Word to the Bad, and featured lyrics denouncing Michael as shallow and selfish. Jermaine even went at Mike for allegedly changing his skin color and obtaining plastic surgery. He also said that Michael hadn't answered his phone calls for months.
What is it, 1984 to 1992? You saw Michael maybe 3 times a year during that period?
Yes.
You sent him letters?
Yes.
Packages, but he never responded to any of them?
No.
Why didn't he want to see you, Jermaine?
It's not that he didn't want to see me.
He could have picked up the phone and seen you anytime he wanted.
No, Michael don't call.
Jermaine also said, "I understand he's a very busy person, but after you repeatedly try to contact your own brother and he doesn't call you back, you begin to wonder if he hasn't just completely lost touch with reality." Michael obviously didn't like the song and was even driven to sneaking into his parents' house to confront Jermaine, who apparently was avoiding him. Jermaine allegedly leaked the song and spoke on the song saying, "I know people are going to go off on a tangent saying that Jermaine is jealous, but it's not true. Michael and I have never feuded. The only reason I wrote this song, and it came from the bottom of my heart, was to help my little brother get a grip on reality. I never meant to discredit him. The song was never supposed to come out in public. But now that it has, I'm here to say that yes, I wrote it and I stand by it. Although the diss track was the peak of their beef, it also seemed to be what ended it. Because whenever Michael and Jermaine spoke following its release, they seemed to have everything hashed out. And while the Jackson family had plenty of other drama, some involving more rumors of Michael suppressing his siblings' careers, in the case of Jermaine and Michael, the two ended on good terms. And as you may have noticed throughout this video, there were a lot of allegations and rumors about Michael Jackson, which is bound to happen when you're the king of pop. And one of the biggest rumors was that we never actually heard Michael Jackson's real voice, and that he instead pitched it way down for the public. And while Michael Jackson's beefs were crazy, Tyler the Creator just trolled everyone who messed with him. When Tyler the Creator came onto the scene, he came in swinging at everybody. He was super controversial and known for talking crazy, so it's no surprise that he has had a handful of beefs. And with a ride or die fan base like Tyler's, it is not good for any artist that comes into his crosshairs. So today we're going to be looking into the many beefs of Tyler the Creator, starting off with DJ Khaled. Tyler the Creator and DJ Khaled had one of the most iconic back and forths, one that actually changed a lot of people's opinions on DJ Khaled. Khaled's beef with Tyler started back in 2019 after they both released albums the same week, Tyler with Igor and DJ Khaled with Father of Assad. Both albums performed pretty well, which led to a battle for #1 on the Billboard 200 chart. During the lead up, Khaled was confident he'd win, especially with his shady attempt to boost his album sales. This is because he partnered up with an energy drink company to bundle his album. While bundling isn't new and Tyler himself did some as well, Billboard thought that DJ Khaled partnering with a multi-level marketing scheme company to boost his album sales was a bit too shady. So when their race got very close, Billboard had to look deeper into the numbers, which resulted in them disqualifying DJ Khaled's bundle sales. Obviously, DJ Khaled was not happy that a bunch of his album sales were disqualified, and because of this, Tyler's album Igor went #1. So Khaled decided to go on Instagram and rant about it.
I gotta say this too. I make albums so people can play it and you actually hear it. You know, driving your car, you hear another car playing it. You know, go to the barbershop, you hear them playing it. You know, turn the radio on and you hear them playing it. You know, it's playing everywhere. It's called great music. It's called albums that you actually hear the songs. Not no mysterious shit and you never hear it. On your dome.
On top of this, after Khaled got second place, he stormed into his record label's office with an entourage. Someone at the office said he was angry and yelling, he threw a temper tantrum, and he was furious. There was some nasty stuff said. Publicly, he's all about positivity, but there's a mean side to him that people don't see. He overhyped the record and blew it up as his biggest album ever. Following Khaled's public outrage, a few things happened, including Billboard officially changing their bundling rules in 2023 to avoid this type of issue in the future. But this was really the only win Khaled got from this situation. Pretty quickly, fans got upset with DJ Khaled for disrespecting Tyler the Creator rather than being happy for a peer. They were saying it was especially ironic since Tyler produced everything on his album and did most of the legwork, while DJ Khaled had a million big name artists and producers on his album while he just arranged it. Basically, they were saying Khaled didn't do any work. People were even pissed at the idea alone of Khaled thinking that he deserved the #1 spot over Tyler.
But artistry has never really been DJ Khaled's strong point, as he's never really been an artist himself. He's been that guy that always sits on the side watching everybody else participate in the group project and putting his name at the fucking top, saying we the best in all his songs. Cool. The thing that made that tolerable for so long was the idea that you thought maybe, despite him not doing shit, he would be aware of it, you know? Like, all this time, I think we'd been tolerating that DJ Khaled cosign or that DJ Khaled brand on a lot of the tracks because we're just like, hey, it's Khaled, man. You know, he's a meme. He embraced his meme. He does funny things from time to time. Like, there's no reason to really hate on this dude because he knows, right? He knows, doesn't he?
Unlike the fans though, Tyler took the high road and really didn't say much about the statement for quite a while. At first, he was just trolling in Instagram comments saying things like, who the fuck listens to Tyler the Creator? And his MSG show sold out, but I've never heard a Tyler song in my life. Later on, when Igor won a Grammy, Tyler tweeted, mysterious music, making fun of what Khaled said. However, he didn't directly reference this beef until 2021. After the release of Call Me If You Get Lost, Tyler spoke on the beef on Hot 97.
It was fun. It was just watching a man die inside because the guy that, you know, the weirdo was winning. I was moonwalking in a wig. This nigga had everyone on his album. Everyone. I didn't say nothing. I just let that #1 speak. Nigga ego had to deal with that because his whole identity is being #1. And when he didn't get that, that sat with him longer in real lifetime than that moment. I moved on. I went and did some shows. We went to London. Cool. Didn't think about it. That sat with him because his whole identity is we the best. We the number one. And when the underdog to him took that away from him, the nigga ego was deflated.
In the interview, even though he went pretty hard, Tyler made sure to say he has no hard feelings after the drama. However, after Call Me If You Get Lost won a Grammy, Tyler did say something on IG Live.
And I know you're seething and angry and no one listens to that album. These arena tours that are selling out says different. And if you put that much energy into something, maybe everyone will be proud.
Tyler even mentioned almost sampling one of Khaled's songs on Call Me If You Get Lost because I guess he still has a decent amount of respect for him. In a 2023 Rolling Stone feature, Khaled spoke positively about his relationship with Tyler despite everything that had happened. Khaled said the two artists have a good rapport and that he'd like to work with Tyler someday. Then, later at the Rock Nation brunch, the two even took a picture together, so it does seem like their beef is pretty much gone. But because of Khaled's obsession with being number one, along with a ton of other things he's done over the years, a lot of fans lost a bunch of respect for him after this incident. And I do think this played a big role in hurting his public image. In one of my videos about all of Khaled's controversies, one of the top comments even references this beef saying, "I make albums so people can play it. I've never sat down and listened to a fucking Khaled album, LMFAO." So clearly this beef really hurt his public image. And while this back and forth really changed people's opinions on Khaled, the next one made Tyler's opponent just look desperate. Tyler the Creator and ASAP Nast had a beef that got pretty heated, even though it all happened over some clothes, which is pretty funny. ASAP Nast is a rapper and member of ASAP Mob, which is a pretty iconic hip-hop group. He's also ASAP Rocky's cousin. ASAP Rocky and Tyler the Creator are known to be good friends, so this beef really could have caused some problems. Nast and Tyler began having public issues in 2020 when Nast accused Tyler of stealing his swag. Out of nowhere, on his Instagram story, Nast posted a string of rants saying that Tyler stole his fits and gave a bunch of random reasons for how he did it. Nast said, "I see y'all stealing the drip. It's all good. You know, just pay me some homage. Tyler, just make sure next year, I got some golf wang tickets. And I don't want to call you next year to get tickets because you're going to be on stage dancing around looking like me anyway." After this, he posted some evidence to try to further explain his case. Later that year, in an interview, Nast spoke on the case again, saying, "I just think that people genuinely gravitate towards that. Now when I go outside, every day I see people who dress like me, except they probably would have got shit for it a couple years ago." Like Tyler has in most of his recent beefs, he kind of let it go for a while, but he finally responded on his 2021 Call Me If You Get Lost album. On the track Rise, Tyler said, "You ain't the only dude that be in Paris. Why you filled with terror whenever you in my presence? Is it cause we look just alike and people said it?" People assumed at first that this was about Nast, and then Tyler confirmed the suspicions on Instagram Live when he connected the dots.
To everyone, to all the fans who still give a fuck, I know I'm tight as fuck, but like the fact that y'all still care is amazing. To niggas who saying I took they style, you will never amount to me. Okay? Just know that. They know who I'm talking about. Listen to that Rise verse.
Later on Twitter, a fan asked Tyler who he was talking about when he said, "You'll never amount to me." And Tyler responded saying, "A fella who I think has great style but keeps getting in his own way because of ego, so he blames others when they get hand claps for something he's passionate about, which is sweaters that all old French men wear and animal prints, haha." Nast took the chance to keep some more attention coming his way on Instagram Live, but instead of directly pushing the beef further, he approached it in an odd way.
People want to see me go back, y'all want to see us go back and forth, but I can't do the back and forth for people. You're not even like, I can't do the back and forth for people that's not even of my caliber. Like, you're not even like, and the proof is in the pudding. So I don't gotta explain myself no more. You niggas just gotta go do your homework, and then that's that.
He went on to say that he won't get the love he deserves until he passes away and that the feud between him and Tyler isn't real. He said, "We don't have an actual beef. We aren't beefing for real, guys. It's all good." And he's still Rocky's boy, he's still my boy, but if people really want to have a swag off, holla at me. Then Nast switched up again, tweeting, "At me so I know it's real or get off my dick." He also accused Tyler of switching up his style after meeting him. So Nast was really just wishy-washy with this whole thing, and then eventually fans asked him what he wanted from Tyler, and he said, Start paying homage to the people you rip off. Stop acting original when you not. Simple. Well, the beef left lots of fans confused, especially on if it was even real or not. People were even more surprised to see Nast appear at a party for Tyler's Louis Vuitton line, which to me just seems like the ultimate win for Tyler. Like the guy who was accusing him of stealing his style was a guest at an event where Tyler was launching a collab with Louis Vuitton. Overall, Nast said the beef wasn't that deep, and since we've seen Tyler patch things up with a ton of artists, Tyler probably agrees. And while this beef was much more low-key, Tyler also had a scuffle with one of the biggest rappers of all time. In 2018, Eminem dropped his surprise album Kamikaze, where he dissed tons of artists. And Tyler, the Creator, was one of the artists who landed in Eminem's crosshairs. On the song Fall, Eminem talks a lot about receiving hate from fans, critics, and other musicians on his album Revival. He called out a bunch of names like Joe Budden, Academics, Earl Sweatshirt, Tyler, and the entire industry as a whole. Most people liked the song, and it did very well, as most Eminem songs do, but some people took issue with the section aimed at Tyler because it contained a homophobic slur. Not fully, like Eminem censored it, but you know, obviously the sentiment was still there. The line was, "Tyler, create nothing, I see why you call yourself a F slur. Bitch, it's not just cause you lack attention, it's because you worship D12's balls, you're sacrilegious. If you're gonna critique me, you better at least be as good or better." But what did Tyler even do to warrant this crazy attack from Eminem? Obviously, M is known for being edgy and saying crazy things, but this is surprising as Eminem and Tyler actually used to seem to be friends. Eminem and Tyler's relationship dates back to 2014 when Odd Future, Tyler's old collective, opened up for Eminem on his tour. Back then, Tyler was openly a huge Eminem fan and had a lot of respect for him. Yellow Wolf, who was signed by M at the time and was also on the tour, remembers Tyler almost going out of his way to prove how big of a fan he was. Yella said, "I remember Tyler mouthing every single word of every song Marshall played. I remember that vividly. We were all by the soundboard and Tyler just knew every word to every song, and he made sure that I knew he knew. It was like he was like, 'You're signed to Eminem? I'll rap this whole song right to your face. You don't know this song.'" And clearly M had a mutual respect for Tyler because he said, "I'm a combination of Skylar Grey, Tyler the Creator, and Violent J," in 2013 on the song Wicked Ways. To go from this level of admiration and, companionship to getting dissed on his 2018 album, you would think Tyler did something pretty crazy. But really, it was just a few tweets. It actually started with a few tweets in 2010 where Tyler was saying he thought Eminem's Recovery was a terrible album. In another tweet from 2014, Tyler said, "I love you, Marshall. You are my favorite rapper, but dude, Shady 15 is fucking ass. Why won't someone who loves him tell him no?" But there was a final tweet in 2017 that seemed to be the nail in the coffin for their relationship, when Tyler said, "Dear God, this song is horrible. Sheesh, how the fuck," which was referring to Eminem's song with Beyonce called Walk on Water. So all of these tweets from Tyler voicing his opinion pretty harshly on Eminem's music is what warranted the diss. M actually also came for other Odd Future members like Earl Sweatshirt, because Earl once said, "If you still follow Eminem, you probably drink way too much Mountain Dew and probably need to come home from the army." And then when he was once asked if he liked Eminem's new stuff, Earl said hell no. A lot of people were upset with Eminem's attack on Tyler the Creator, who had become a fan favorite artist by this point. Shortly after Fall's release, the Independent UK released an article headlined, "Eminem is still rapping with gay slurs in 2018. If that's his only way to get people talking, he should just retire now." Tyler had recently opened up about his sexuality on his 2017 album Flower Boy, so Eminem using this word against him upset a ton of fans. As part of Kamikaze's release, Eminem did an interview series with Sway, and in one part he addresses public reaction to the Tyler line.
I thought their movement was really cool too. And a lot of the shit that ended up happening after that, like the tweet he put out with talking about Shady 15 and why can't people that are close to him tell him that his shit sucks and it's trash. And like, okay, listen, man, you don't have to like it. And it could really suck. But being that somebody really was cool to you, you would expect some kind of reciprocation, and just don't go public with it and publicly express your opinion and how much my shit is trash. Okay, so I chalk it up to them being young and just kids, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, all right, I've been there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, I was dick when I first came out. So when Tyler tweeted out the thing about Walk on Water, this fucking song is horrible, I was like, all right, I realize now. And I realized when I said it, but I wasn't like in the mind frame of, I was angry when I said the shit about Tyler. The fact of like, every time I saw this kid, like, always so cool to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I loved his energy, like everything, you know what I'm saying? Like he was a funny dude, like he's super charismatic and shit. But I'm sitting back like, man, at what point do I have to say something just to defend myself? And I think that the word that I called him on the album on that song was one of the things where I felt like this might be too far. Because in my quest, in my quest to hurt him, I realized that I was hurting a lot of other people by saying it.
Despite what the public was saying, Tyler really didn't seem to care that much. In an interview with The Guardian, Tyler talked about being pretty unaffected by the bar as he understood why M did it. Tyler said, "Did you ever hear me publicly say anything about that? Because I knew what the intent was. He felt pressured because people got offended for me. Don't get offended for me. We were playing GTA when we heard that. We rewound it and we're like, oh, and then kept playing." The whole situation was ironic though, because Tyler was banned from the UK for a few years as part of anti-terrorism legislation because he was using words like that back in the day. Later on in a Hot 97 interview, Tyler spoke on the Eminem situation again, but seemingly in a different tone.
Do you and him vibe? You Eminem?
Look.
Because it's the second time you mentioned, so I'm curious.
Favorite rapper really inspired me. I don't like his new stuff. And he doesn't like that. I don't like his new stuff. And he dissed me on his last album. And I remember hearing it.
Why did he?
Because I keep being vocal about shit that I don't like. Clancy's probably like, fuck, Paul Rosenberg's gonna text me or whatever. I love Paul. I love him.
Well, let's make it the right way. His newer material hasn't moved you like his material. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah. I don't want to go into full explanation.
That's a good way.
After this, Eminem said on his song No Regrets in 2020, "I can make a mistake and erupt and end up taking a dump for saying some dumb shit, thinking I run shit. Misplacing my anger enough to give Earl and Tyler the brunt. Should have never made a response. Should have just aimed for the fake ones." Just this year, Tyler spoke actually again on the incident, but this time Tyler seemed like he felt really bad for how harsh he was speaking on M's music.
Eminem put out his album called Recovery. 2010. I was a big Eminem fan, and when that album came out, I fucking hated it. Hated it. Publicly was like, this shit is whack. Didn't like it. And after watching that show, dude, I felt so bad.
Because the album made sense.
I felt so bad about those tweets and things like that, because thinking from his perspective, someone like me publicly saying that stuff and him getting off drugs and being clean and getting to a point in his life that's behind him, and me implying like, you need to know this shit is what, he probably felt like I was attacking him. I thought I was just like, I don't like the music.
So it seems like Tyler has matured quite a bit in his opinion and the way he kind of carries himself publicly, and overall it seems like they patched things up for the most part. But it's interesting, as this is one of the only beefs where Eminem felt like the need to apologize to the person he was dissing. In the same interview I just mentioned where Tyler was discussing his beefs with Eminem, he also kicked off a new one with a rapper named Ian. In the interview, Tyler never calls out Ian by name, but based on what he said, everyone assumed that's who he was talking about.
This white kid, regular like Caucasian man, and he's like mocking Future and Gucci Mane like rap music, and like people are like, this shit hard. It's not even like satire. It's like, I'm just joking, I'm just mocking it. But I'm like, no, you can't do. And I hold rap music so close to my heart because this shit changed my life and everyone's life around me, and I'm a nerd about this shit. This is like weird, and I'm looking at it, and something about it like don't even sit well with me in comparison to someone like a Mac Miller or Eminem, who it didn't seem like they was mocking it. They had a genuine love for it, and they were still just being, aside from when Eminem was wearing do-rags in like 2006. This is blackface.
I gotta see.
This is audio blackface. Say it again? Yeah, appropriate.
How old is the kid?
Everyone, the word I was looking for is appropriation. Please just cut that right after that whole rant.
These comments caused a storm on Twitter as Ian is a fairly controversial artist. He's one of the newer generation white kids like Netspend who have been going viral lately, in part because they are white. And I'm not saying that just to say it. Ian literally has a music video where he's rapping about some hard shit while at dinner with his stereotypical looking family, so clearly he's playing on his appearance. I like some of his songs, I'm not just sitting here hating, but it is very clearly a part of his marketing. I think that's undeniable. So yeah, Ian has been going up a lot this past year, and it seemed like that's who Tyler was talking about. Ian himself never directly responded, but his manager Boo Cham did. Boo, who is Akon's brother and huge in the music industry as a Columbia Records executive VP, called out Tyler on his Instagram story where he said, "Yo Tyler, I signed Ian and I'm from Atlanta. He sounds nothing like Gucci or Future, LOL. It's called influence, but I never thought I'd see the day where you become old and hate on the youth." So clearly he's become quite the controversial figure, with Tyler's comments not helping at all. Along with Ian's manager clapping back, Ian himself dropped a snippet in which some people thought he was replying. On the song he says, "He on the back, I'm on the cover, we not on the same page." People assumed this was directed at Tyler and others who were hating in the comments, but everyone just kind of clowned on Ian for thinking he's up next or better than Tyler the Creator. Then Tyler took it a step further when he mentioned this situation on the track Thought I Was Dead off his new album Chromacopia. Tyler said, "White boys mocking this shit and y'all mad at me. Y'all can suck my dick, pull up old tweets, pull up old t-shirts, all that, I'll moonwalk over that bitch." So clearly Tyler's been doubling down on his position. Regardless, this beef with Ian was a much more recent one and could still develop more in the future. There's a good chance I think Ian responds at some point on his next album, so we'll just have to see how that goes. Apart from these few beefs, Tyler has just had a few back and forths with a lot of artists, especially from back in the day when he came onto the scene talking crazy about everybody. One of these was with Chris Brown, starting back around 2011 with a brief Twitter disagreement. Chris basically tweeted about newer music being demonic and weird, so fans speculated that it was directed at Tyler, who was rocking upside down crosses around that time. So Tyler responded, which incited a brief back and forth. The public back and forth was 27 tweets long, including Chris, Tyler, Frank Ocean, and even The Game, who jumped in to say a few things. First, Chris tweeted a compliment where he said he liked Frank Ocean and compared him to a young James Fauntleroy or Kevin Costner. Then Frank, who took the tweet as an insult, tweeted back with a comparison of his own, mocking Chris. Chris immediately engaged in the beef, saying, "Fuck Odd Future," calling the group small time. Chris ranted saying, "I was trying to help your sales, bro, you f***ing clown. You and Tyler the Creator would be casted great for Planet of the Apes." This was enough to get Tyler involved in the thread, where he opened by saying, "What's wrong, Christopher? Amber Rose stole your style, bro?" Chris clapped back saying he's done talking and that if they wanted action, they knew where to find him. Then The Game jumped in and basically told the two to quit the Twitter beef because it would just hurt their careers. After this, the back and forth kind of just fizzled out, and since then nothing's really happened, so that was about it for their beef. However, 2 years later, Frank Ocean was involved in a fight with Chris Brown's crew.
Got into a fight outside of studio here in LA, and you know what? It was all over a parking spot. So Chris's side is saying that Frank Ocean showed up and jumped him and his buddies over this parking spot, saying it was Frank Ocean's spot and not Chris Brown's. And of course, Frank is saying a complete opposite story. He is saying that Chris Brown and his guys jumped Frank as he was coming to the studio. We do know that the cops are considering Frank the victim because he is the one that stood around and actually filled out the police report with them, where Chris Brown did not stick around to talk to the cops. So obviously this is a developing story right now because it just happened a couple hours ago, but we should be finding out a little more soon.
I'm not sure if this had anything to do with their previous argument on Twitter. I saw people saying it was over a parking spot, but regardless, it seems like Odd Future walked away with the dub. On Tyler's breakout hit Yonkers, he took shots at a ton of people, even though it clearly wasn't that serious. In the song, Tyler said, "What you think of Haley Williams? Fuck her. Wolf Haley robbing them. I'll crash that fucking airplane that F-word N-word Bob is in, and stab Bruno Mars in his goddamn esophagus and won't stop until the cops come in." Obviously, Tyler was just shit-talking everybody in this song, but he said the reason he was saying those things is because he just doesn't like radio music.
I mean, it wasn't really a diss on my behalf. I just hate the fucking song.
Which Airplanes?
Yeah, the Airplane song. I'm gonna just keep it 100.
I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a beef or anything. It's whatever.
What about Bruno Mars? You were taking shots at him
I
too.
hate that guy.
Why? What did Bruno Mars ever do?
Have you seen his face?
I have seen his face.
You don't want to hit him?
I'm not violent.
This was enough to piss off B.O.B., so he released the track No Future as a diss track on Tyler. He said things like, "A sea of great whites, you are a dolphin. If I was you, I would be a little more cautious." After this, he went at Tyler again on Tech Nine's song I'm a Psycho. B.O.B. rapped, "I stab you with this mic and rap this verse, I'm rapping to you. Matter of fact, I'm rapping through you. Never say my motherfucking name unless you absolutely have to." Tyler tweeted back saying, "Still hate that Airplane song though. It has the same chord progression as f***ing Love the Way You Lie and that one song by Katy Perry." The beef between these two didn't last very long either. Tyler actually said in response, "I've never heard him spit like that. Took me by surprise, cause it's tight." However, Bruno Mars also didn't seem to be a fan of Tyler's comments. He responded to Tyler on 2 occasions saying, "Tyler has to wait in line if he wants to stab me. Tyler's definitely not the first guy that said something like that to me, and he's not going to be the last." And again later on he said, "Oh man, how did I feel about it? That's what coming up is. You pick up some fans and a handful of haters along the way." Things seem to get a little more serious than just jokes at this point. Tyler then responded at the MTV Awards.
Go ahead. So you said some pretty bold things about Bruno Mars. Any regrets? Anything you want to take back?
Oh, this guy wants a good story. No, I still hate that dude's fucking music. He put on a good performance, but I still hate his music.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Sick.
Tyler doubled down on his hate for Bruno later that year on the game song Martians vs. Goblins, rapping the line, "Bruno Mars is still sucking dick and fucking male butts in the same closet that Tyler Perry gets his clothes from." Following this at the VMAs, he joked how if Bruno Mars beat him for Best New Artist, he would have killed himself. After all of this though, just like most of the other beefs, it kind of just fizzled out and there's nothing much more to it. But beefs don't always happen just between musicians. Sometimes it can be an interview gone wrong. From crazy out-of-pocket and personal questions to people leaving and interviewers just straight up hating, there have been plenty of interviews that have gone wrong in rap. So today we're going to be looking into some of these terrible interviews, starting off with Logic on The Breakfast Club. So Logic, like many others on this list, has also been tied to tons of controversies, but usually in his case it ends up with him getting clowned. And that's what makes his interviews with The Breakfast Club even more interesting, because instead of the usual anti-Logic response from the public, people actually took his side following these interviews. It all started in 2014 when Logic went on Breakfast Club for the first time and made sure to point out how big of a deal it was and how grateful he was to be there. But immediately, Charlamagne the God set the tone in an odd way, going straight after Logic being biracial. If you didn't know, Logic stresses a ton that he's biracial, and it's a very obviously a very big deal to him, so Charlamagne knew what he was doing. But Logic remained calm and kept the interview flowing without trying to argue too much, and things seemed normal, but every once in a while, Charlamagne would either just come at Logic or just act disrespectful in a weirdly casual way about some pretty sensitive topics. The main thing that Charlamagne kept doing though was comparing Logic to J. Cole and Kendrick, then minutes later told him to never compare himself to others, which was very hypocritical. And then when discussing Logic's rough upbringing, Charlamagne asked what some viewers call the worst interview question ever. Somehow Logic was able to keep his cool through this whole interview and didn't really have any issues during the actual interview, but pretty much every single comment on the video was talking about how much of a hater Charlamagne was and how disrespectful he was acting. They also pointed out how well Logic was handling the awkwardness throughout the entire interview. But what's even more surprising is that Logic again appeared on The Breakfast Club just a year later, even after the question about his sister and all the other disrespect. And in this interview, things seem to pick up right where they left off, with Charlamagne again comparing Logic and his music to Kendrick, and others basically saying he was just biting.
All right.
Now, one thing I noticed about this album,
Well, I noticed it with the last album. The last album sounds a lot like Good Kid, Mad City. Like a lot of your flows is like real Kendrick.
I wouldn't say it's the flows. I say probably.
I mean, even on this album, you sound a lot like Kendrick, a lot like Cole, even Drake at times.
At times, I guess you could say that.
Again, Logic remained cool and respectful the whole time, and he was actually being nice to Charlemagne. And ironically, after Logic was saying some nice things to Charlemagne, he asked another kind of crazy question.
Now, I saw you do an interview with Vlad TV, and you said that it would be very uncomfortable for you to listen to a gay rapper talking about kissing a dude.
Did I say that?
I don't know.
I thought you said you saw it, Charlemagne.
I said that?
Yeah, you said you saw it on Vlad
I don't
TV.
think I said that because I'm comfortable with the gay community.
Made that
I
up.
believe in
I didn't
all
make
people.
that up.
I will say, I don't know exactly how that got written.
Just like with the sister comment, Logic kept calm and was shooting down the homophobia accusations, which was connected to an old tweet, and then he moved the interview forward. But Charlemagne continued being Charlemagne. Like immediately after this heartfelt explanation of the meaning behind Logic's music, Charlemagne just kept trolling him.
So that when those people are out there fighting the good fight and they go home frustrated and tired and just feeling like they want to take a life themselves, hopefully they can find peace and escape in my music to fight another day.
So what are you doing for the Black Lives Matter movement?
I'm being me. I'm surviving, motherfucker. I'm me. I'm half black. I'm a part of this culture. What you talking about?
Well, the interview ended in a pretty good way with seemingly no animosity. All of the commenters were turning on Charlemagne, talking about how rude he was, and Logic fans clearly were not happy with him. For a while, though, it seemed like nothing really big came of these interviews other than the response from the fans. However, this all changed in 2019 when Logic dropped his song titled Clickbait. In the song, he says, "I don't do the Breakfast Club because Charlemagne is shameless. That's the only one I leave out when I run my bases. Do your research before you call somebody homophobic. You make a living off of controversy and you know it." In response to this verse, Charlemagne made Logic the donkey of the day, which is just a segment they have on the Breakfast Club where they highlight people doing stupid things.
Donkey of the day for Friday, May 10th goes to a young biracial rapper named Sir Robert Bryson Hall II, known to the world as Logic. I don't have anything against Logic. I don't know Logic personally. Met him a couple times when he came to the Breakfast Club. Don't listen to his music. Don't find him appealing. In fact, I am so committed to not listening to Logic that he once put my favorite hip-hop group of all time, Wu-Tang Clan, on the record, and I did not listen.
And of course, in this segment, Charlemagne was just roasting Logic even more. Charlemagne also broke down the lyrics, saying that he agrees he's shameless, but pointing out that the reason Logic hasn't been on isn't by choice, but rather the fact that no one really wants him on anyway. Charlemagne just said that the diss track was made for attention and that there was no real beef. After this, there have been a few brief mentions of one another in other interviews, but the sentiment pretty much remained the same. And while Logic was favored by the fans in this incident, Kanye did not get the same reception when he went on Sway. Nowadays, when you think about Kanye, there's a ton of really serious controversies that come to mind. I'm sure I don't need to name them, but his rants and outbursts are nothing new. From his MTV outburst to maybe his most iconic rant of all time at the VMAs. Kanye's pretty much been controversial throughout his entire career. So among all of his other viral moments, you may have forgotten one of his most iconic, his interview on Sway in the Morning. In 2013, arguably during the peak of Kanye's career, he went on Sway in the Morning. And if you don't know much about Sway, he's been hosting a radio show for about 14 years after working as a rapper and a music journalist with MTV. But now, after being a mainstream staple in the industry for over 20 years, Sway is mostly known as a radio personality. And despite Kanye and Sway being friends for a while, there was actually a little bit of animosity that led up to this interview. Basically, MTV put out their hottest MCs in the game list and placed Kanye at number 7, which obviously did not sit well with him. In response, Kanye called in the DJ Enough's show to voice his opinions, especially about Sway's influence on the list.
I couldn't believe it. Like, I mean, I gave Sway his first TV, man.
Right.
And really, I didn't really want to, like, even call to, like, even talk about the number 7 list. I just want to tell everybody I gave Sway his first TV.
Right.
And he need to remember that.
After that, Sway decided to clarify that while he had helped create the idea for the list, he didn't actually vote to avoid something like this happening. Instead, the final rankings were a compilation of lists from actual voters. And Sway also said that the TV thing was real, but that Kanye told the story in a biased way. So about a month later, after all this went down, Sway decided to have Kanye on his show. Eventually, the conversation got on to fashion and things like Kanye's clothing brands. They had made jokes about the MTV situation, so it seemed like everything was fine. But then Sway began asking Kanye about why he needs the help of big clothing brands in building his own, and this is where the tension began.
Why is it that you need these people? It's like you said, you don't need anybody to do these things. You don't need Adidas if you want to do a new shoe. Why?
Because you need proper production to bring some of that certain value. I went 13 million in debt
working on my clothing line, and I'm getting Kanye Wested constantly with the prices.
At first, Kanye responded in a calm way, explaining in a long-winded rant how he's been trying but losing lots of money in the process. And he just kept getting all mad about how these big brands are taking advantage of him, but he needs them for distribution.
Or why don't you empower yourself and don't need them and do it yourself?
How, Sway?
Take a few steps back to go.
You ain't got the answers, man. You ain't got the answers. You ain't got the answers. You ain't got the answers, Sway.
Kanye.
I've been doing this more than you.
Doing what?
You ain't got.
Come on, chill out.
You
bro.
ain't got the answers.
Kanye,
you ain't got the answers.
Bro, I'm asking you.
You
a
ain't
question.
been doing the education,
bro.
You ain't been doing the education.
Kanye, calm down.
You don't have the answers though.
Calm down.
Because you trying to give me advice about something. You ain't got the answer. You ain't spent $13 million of your own money trying to empower yourself.
Yes, but I spent hundreds of thousands and putting out clothing lines at a smaller degree. All I'm asking you,
and it ain't no Ralph though. It ain't Ralph level.
Let me ask you this. I'm asking
What's the name of your clothing line? We don't know.
After this, Kanye decided to compare his issues to that of Harriet Tubman or even the French Revolution. And he did eventually apologize for kind of going crazy on Sway. But even with that, for the rest of the interview, you couldn't really ignore what had just happened. Plus, you could tell that Kanye was still a little pissed about the MTV's hottest list.
Y'all putting me number 6 after Big Sean on the hip hop list.
Man, you really give a
but what I'm saying, my relevancy, that means because I'm wearing a kilt or because I'm doing something
man,
that's
ain't
gaining.
Why you came number 6 at the time we did the show.
What you think now, though?
If we did it now, you'd be number 1. But at the time, you were Drake.
Kanye and Sway kind of continued going back and forth throughout this entire interview, but there was no more big explosions like the one previously. Most of the comments on the video are actually about how Sway handled this interview with grace and was super calm the whole time and did a great job at de-escalating the situation. And the two eventually ended with a pretty lighthearted, goofy freestyle, and it seemed like they squashed any potential beef. It seemed like there were no leftover problems. But years later, this situation would actually be brought up a few more times. In a 2022 interview with Good Morning America, Kanye finally admitted that Sway indeed had the answers.
So Sway, almost 10 years ago, said, man, why don't you do it on your own? Was he right?
You know what? I will go ahead and say Sway had the answer. I know people are gonna be like, no.
And while Kanye was able to admit that he was actually in the wrong, the situation with Migos, Academics, and Joe Budden was not so cut and dry. In late 2016, the Migos dropped their biggest song to date, Bad and Bougie, which launched them into a much more mainstream audience. And with this new level of success, naturally came a lot of people wanting to interview the group. So at the 2017 BET Awards, the Migos sat down for an interview hosted by Complex with Academics, Navendra Alexis, and Joe Budden. By the time the Migos were up, Ak, Joe, and Navendra had already been hosting the show and interviewing other artists for about an hour. But when the Migos arrived, the vibe completely changed. Joe Budden, who previously was very talkative with other artists, went mute and shifted his posture in a pretty defensive way. Besides the obvious animosity with Joe, the interview started mostly normal with Ak driving the conversation about the group's newfound level of success. However, after about a minute, Ak shifted the conversation and asked Takeoff in a pretty lighthearted way why he was left off Bad and Bougie. And this is when things started to get awkward.
I feel like there's like a running joke with you being left off Bad and Bougie.
I ain't left off Bad and Bougie. You think I'm left off Bad and Bougie?
Say again?
You say I'm left off Bad and Bougie?
What you say?
You say I'm left off Bad and Bougie?
Yeah.
Do it look like I'm left off Bad and Bougie?
What'd you say?
Do it look like I'm left off Bad and Bougie?
Nah!
Obviously, this question could be taken as a jab since Bad and Bougie was the group's biggest song, but to be fair, Ak asked a question that all of us were wondering because Takeoff is a really good rapper, and for him to not be on such a good song had all the fans wondering why. However, Academics noticed that his question potentially upset the Migos, so he pivoted and started praising them again. But then Joe became even more visually frustrated and insisted that the interview be wrapped up.
One thing I like about the group, because ever since when you were in jail, even though you might see one or the other, y'all move as a collective.
All right, we got to wrap this up, though.
Okay. My bad. Have you trying to jump?
I couldn't wrap it up then.
Over there too. Close it.
Close it.
At this point, the tension between Joe and the Migos became impossible to ignore, so Axe tried to smooth things over by continuing to compliment them, but Joe wasn't having it.
Listen, man, I wish I could talk to the Migos longer, man. It's one of my favorite groups. I've been covering for so long. I'm glad they succeeded, man.
Hey, man, you guys are nominated tonight. Have a good show.
Wait. No. Wait.
Where's their security guard? Where's their security guard?
Chill.
So with Joe clearly having enough of the interview, he just got up and left, which clearly upset the Migos. It seemed like in that clip too that there could have been some sort of fight going on, and that's what fans were theorizing, but luckily the situation was de-escalated. However, the story doesn't end there. Complex still had Act, Joe, and Navendra lined up to interview DJ Drama. So when things fully calmed down and the interview was set up, they continued on and acknowledged what happened.
All right, guys, we got DJ Drama with us right now. Drama, we just had a very, how do I call this? Intense moment.
It wasn't no drama here.
It was an awkward interview with the Migos. He drops the mic, walked off, and then they try to jump you.
I don't want.
What just happened?
Yo, Drama looked like he living good, man.
Instantly, these clips of the interview went viral, and it was the only thing people were talking about for days, and they had a lot of theories and speculation as to why this happened and what happened. So Joe Budden decided to address the situation. First, he tweeted a bit where he didn't give much explanation besides saying he has no regrets. Then on a radio show with DJ Caesar Joe, he further explained his side.
Why drop the mic, Joe?
That was a bit unconventional.
Yeah.
It was.
But your whole body language, it looked like you ain't even want to talk to
I didn't want to talk to the Migos.
Why?
I've never seen a good Migos interview. But when people are not enthusiastic and they don't really want to kick it, you're not just going to give me your rear end. Yeah, so I feel like I needed them to know how I felt before that interview was over.
Yeah.
Because I might not ever see them again.
Yeah.
So I got up and walked away from that damn interview.
He also clarified that no fight broke out. As months passed, it seemed like, everything was swept under the rug, everything was going fine. But then the Migos teased their next album, and in this snippet, they dissed Joe Budden.
If a nigga hatin', call him Joe Budden.
Again, Joe came back with some tweets, and again, he also decided to hop online to further explain. He said on his show, Everyday Struggle, that he thinks maybe because of how he treated Yachty is why the Migos were closed off. After this, though, the beef seemingly fizzled away. But fans still had wondered if there was like a deeper meaning behind the whole situation. And their suspicions were confirmed years later when Academics appeared on Aiden Ross's stream and was asked by a fan if he had any beef with Joe Budden. Academics said no, he has no beef, but then Aiden asked him about the situation with the Migos. So Academics decided to explain the entire situation and what actually happened behind the scenes. First, he explained that Joe seems to have some discontentment towards the Migos due to his hate for mumble rappers. But then things get a little deeper when he points out that Lil Yachty, who Joe had extensive beef with, was signed to the same label as the Migos.
Now, you see this guy right here?
Yeah.
I don't know if they can see the mouse, but this guy right here is the owner of the label that the Migos and Yachty's on.
Got it.
And before Ak even tells his story, he low-key alluded to this years ago on Everyday Struggle.
Joe plays dumb, but Joe knows all of the elements behind the scenes that played a part in the BET Awards moment happening, and he knows and is fully aware of things afterwards and conversations that were had.
Ak continued to say that that guy and his friends pressed Joe about how he was talking about Yachty. Then the next day at BET, Ak said the label tried to intimidate Joe again. Then he explained what happened right before the interview started.
Joe goes to shake their hand, and he extends his arm, and they were like synchronized swimmers. They all looked him in the face, looked at his, all three, and looked him right back in the face like, we're not shaking your hands.
So it made way more sense why that interview went the way it did. Shortly after Ak did this explanation with Aiden, the Migos actually explained their side of the events on Drink Champs. Basically, they just said that on their end, Joe looked negative from the get-go, and they didn't appreciate Ak's question. But like Quavo and Takeoff said, there doesn't appear to be any more beef or issues between the two and Joe. So while the Migos and Joe Budden never really got any backlash for this interview, DJ Khaled actually got a crazy amount for his interview on Hot Ones. These days, it seems like most people have turned their backs on DJ Khaled, which may be for many good reasons. For example, in 2015, DJ Khaled went on Hot Ones hosted by Sean Evans. Basically, if you don't know what Hot Ones is, it's an interview where there's a bunch of wings and they progressively get hotter throughout the whole interview. At this point in his career, most fans didn't have too many issues with Khaled, and if they did, that hate only grew, especially after this interview. DJ Khaled was the season 1 finale guest and had Sean along with fans of the show full of anticipation. The episode started normally with Sean praising Khaled and thanking him for coming on, and Khaled even flew in his personal chef to provide the wings for the interview. So you would think at some level he was at least excited or prepared. Before the interview started, Sean stated that the rules were that if you finish all the wings, then you can plug whatever project you have going on at the end, which at the time for Khaled was a new album. Then they began the interview and started with the first wing. Of course, DJ Khaled starts off acting all cocky like he normally does, but then the first wing hit him, and Khaled's reaction came with some nice foreshadowing.
This shit kinda high, you know that?
This is the first one. This is the weakest wing, bro.
No, I'm just keeping it real, though.
All right, well, I'm just telling you, you got some trouble on the horizon.
I'm with you, my brother. That's part of the game. It's called life, trials and tribulations. It never said it was easy to win.
No. We're going to go through some bumps. There's going to be some peaks and valleys. This is going to be an emotional roller coaster, Khaled.
I'm with you, my brother.
All right, you ready for number 2?
They continued on with the interview talking about Khaled's restaurant and other business ventures. This is when Khaled really started doubling down on the cocky tone, which seemed to keep growing throughout the whole interview. But then they hit the second wing, and it also started to appear more obvious that Khaled was feeling the pressure. But DJ Khaled pushed on with his usual attempt to be inspiring, except now he had a speech impediment from all the spice. Then, about only 4 minutes into the interview, Khaled asked to switch wings with Sean because he thought that his were hotter. This is also when Khaled dropped the iconically cocky, "I promise you if I stop, it doesn't mean I gave up" line, followed by more BS and probably the longest excuse-filled quit you've ever seen.
Yo, bro, is yours different than mine?
But,
I want to switch.
All right. Hot ones first.
Something ain't right.
There you go.
Listen, and I'm going to tell you something right now for all my fans. I promise you if I stop, doesn't mean I gave up.
Yes, it does. By definition.
I'm going to teach you something today.
Okay.
We can't play ourselves. We can't play our health. We can't hurt ourselves. See, that's the key. Now, there's people that will do dumb shit, fuck around, hurt themselves trying to get to what you call a victory. This shit ain't no victory to me, my brother. This shit ain't doing nothing but causing problems to me. I'm gonna keep it real. I'm not doing it, man. Like, I'll answer your question, but...
But I'll have to eat your wings? All right. I can do that.
I can't. Nah, I'm gonna be fucked up for the whole day. How am I supposed to talk to anybody after this?
Could you just tell the people, though? Could you tell the people?
Let me tell you something. It's very important we teach the youth, because this right here is dangerous.
Tell people think that this is like some joke.
No, this ain't no joke.
These things aren't that hot.
Listen.
Tell them.
First of all, I don't even know nothing about this show. No disrespect to your show.
Okay.
This ain't the love I'm want to vibe with.
So Khaled said that he was done trying to eat the wings and he was just flipping the show on its head entirely and low-key being disrespectful to Sean. Even with all of this, Sean still kept the interview going and let Khaled plug whatever he wanted to at the end. But while Sean was relatively nice about Khaled completely ditching the show's structure, Hot Ones fans and Khaled haters alike were not. Almost every single comment on this video was shitting on Khaled for being soft and pretty much disrespectful. Also, as you can imagine, a ton of memes spawned from this interview. Honestly, I'm surprised at how much backlash he got from this video. Personally, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. It was just kind of funny, but people were actually really mad about this. Later on, Sean was asked about the experience on multiple shows where he gave a pretty honest reflection. One time was on Pardon My Take where they asked Sean who he thinks was the worst interview.
Yep. And I think a good example of that is we had DJ Khaled come in super early and then he tapped out on the third wing, like completely rejected the format of the show, like before it even started.
That guy doesn't eat anything.
Yeah. And well, you know what? I remember a memory that I have of that is like walking into the studio and before we laid down the wings or anything, he was already eating pizza. And I remember being like, dude, we're about to eat these wings. He's like, I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
It's surprising, but this wasn't really a big deal at all, especially to Sean. However, fans hated DJ Khaled for this so much. I made a video actually about why so many people hate DJ Khaled, and one of the top comments is, for me, him bailing from Hot Ones was another huge show of his inability to take heat or have humility. So yeah, this interview ended up biting Khaled in the butt for sure. And while Sean Evans is typically viewed as a very good interviewer, these next two interviews went wrong entirely because of the poor interview skills of none other than Ebro. If you don't know much about Ebro, he's been a radio personality covering hip-hop and rap music for about 2 decades now. And in his time covering the industry, like many others in this video, Ebro has had plenty of controversies over the years, mostly due to his stronger opinions. And by the end of this section, you'll probably understand why I don't really like him at all. One of his first major controversies was with Lil Uzi Vert back in 2016. Around this time, Uzi was pretty well known already, but after the release of Money Longer, his career was going way bigger than it was before. And with this newfound level of attention, Uzi started attracting some bigger interviews, including the one with Ebro, which was less than a month after the release of Money Longer. The interview started like most, with Ebro complimenting Uzi on how far he's come as a young artist and some other basic questions. But then the vibe started to change when Ebro gave Uzi a relatively older type of beat to rap on. Uzi basically criticized the beat, saying he was too young to rap on it, and that's when Ebro, especially along with some of his co-hosts, started acting a little different towards Uzi. They pretty much started making everything about Uzi's age in a pretty demeaning type of way. Then when Uzi described older rap as simple, which he clarified clarified wasn't a bad thing at all, Ebro got mad and blamed drugs for why everything sounds how it does now.
We are?
Yeah, y'all simple and that's cool. Y'all fine with? I'm fine with. That's cool.
We didn't do the pills y'all do, man.
That's what it
Y'all
is.
shit. We just smoked weed.
Yeah.
And then maybe our parents maybe our uncle did some crack and there was some heroin in there.
Yeah.
Like it was straightforward stuff. You know what I'm saying? It was cocaine, crack, heroin. It was weed. Done.
But immediately, Paul Rosenberg, the level-headed goat, pointed out the slight hypocrisy of this statement, explaining that the old people used to do crack and heroin, so it's not a much better substitute than pills. Then for some reason, they were just hung up on the drug stuff, and that's what like half the interview was about. They just kept pushing these questions on Uzi. And as the interview continued on, Ebro kept placing labels on Uzi, which often felt like a way to demean him. Then it came time to rap again, and Ebro tried to push the old beat again, which following the previous tension caused things to go south, leading to the viral rockstar conversation.
Yeah.
How it's supposed to go.
So you want to get to these bars?
If you pull up, I'm telling you right now, if you pull up one of them old beats, I'm not rapping on it.
Why?
Straight up.
You
see me, bro? I am a rock star, bro. I'm not rapping on that type stuff.
We'll decide when you're a rock
star. Let me hear it, and I'm letting you know.
He's at least being honest about it.
Yeah. My fans won't be disappointed. They get it.
No, they will.
No, they won't.
I hope I piss your friends
Your
off.
fans gonna be disappointed. all the old guys.
They don't give a
they're
fuck.
gonna be. Yeah. They don't even know why I'm on here right now.
What they'll be disappointed is if you get up here in these bars, you spit is trash, and I don't tell you they trash. So let's get to these raps since you're so nice.
But Uzi played along and rapped on the beat anyways. Ebro tried to make this a bit of a joking situation, but they turned personal when the topic of his career longevity came up. Oh, and Ebro just straight up called Uzi small, which I don't know, it's just like he was roasting him the whole interview. It was kind of an unpleasant type of vibe.
I'm making I don't know, man.
I respect the
cool.
fact he fell off at the end.
Yeah. Put another beat on. Shit.
Nah, because all I got is old man beats and you're not built for
Hey,
that.
listen. It's gonna be a lot of young guys coming up here and they ain't gonna want to rap on that. I'm trying to tell you, it's changing.
Yo, look.
It's changing.
I hope they change.
It's changing, bro.
I hope they change. But as I've seen with all you little young motherfuckers that think you nice.
Yeah.
He is pretty nice.
You nice.
Yeah, I'm good.
Y'all get to like 27, 28, and y'all niggas get to struggling, and y'all be trying to come back to find that sound.
I ain't gonna struggle, bro.
All right, we're gonna see.
We gonna see. Oh, you gonna learn.
And guess what? I'm gonna be here.
Yeah. It's gonna be totally different too. Like I'm gonna be all the way a rock star by then.
But the interview went back to sort of normal with Ebro's co-host sticking up for Uzi, because it was pretty obvious Ebro was just out for Uzi the entire interview. After this interview dropped, the fans were not having it at all. Pretty much everyone in the comments was calling Ebro a hater or an old head for coming at Uzi for basically no reason. They specifically pointed out how lame it is to resist change when music is always changing. Then, as years went by, Ebro's claims that Uzi would fade overnight aged ironically. In 2024 footage from a panel Ebro was on in 2022, he was asked what he thinks about Uzi all these years later. And you'd think that because Uzi went on to have a massively successful career, diamond songs, gold songs, platinum songs, all these things, that Ebro would have changed his mind. But no, he just doubled down in his ignorance and stupid statements.
Success is a question for Ebro. What are your thoughts on Uzi's success?
I love Uzi Vert. I feel like, he still hasn't become the rock star he said he would become. I'm still waiting. Because the rock star, listen, maybe I took it literal, but the rock stars I knew, they were selling out MetLife Stadium. They can sell out Madison Square Garden 8, 10 times. They got hits on the radio everywhere, songs is everywhere. So he told me he was gonna become a rock star. So most people that come up to me and talk to me about Uzi Vert now was probably like 10 years old at that time, was just getting into the internet. They was tight, they was mad that I did that to Uzi Vert. And like I said before, time will tell. Where you at, my guy?
This was pretty crazy to me because it just felt like he was denying reality. And soon after, even Uzi responded with a since deleted Instagram post previewing the track list for Eternal Take 2, with all the songs being hidden besides number 15, which was titled Chill Ebro. And while the song never officially released, Uzi dropped a snippet on his IG story with the lyrics, "I'm the rock star that I said I was going to be, Ebro chill, Ebro chill." However, in a later interview with Complex, Uzi explained the meaning behind Ebro chill along with where they stand today, which makes it seem like the two are fine. But that may not be the case for Ebro and Kodak Black, who had a much more controversial and heated interview. Back in 2018, Kodak Black went on Ebro in the Morning, and Ebro started in a very unique fashion, like straight out the gate, pointing out Kodak's public mistakes and saying that he wasn't even thinking about interviewing him at first anyway.
First of all, I gotta be honest, I was skeptical on doing this interview. I saw your other interviews where you was wearing like a ski mask and all that, and I was like, I'm not really interested in talking to this. But I gotta say, I looked at your rap sheet, I looked at your weed charges, smoking weed in front of your kid on the gram, and different things you've been going through. And I know it's sensitive, but how you feel about everything that's going on?
I got big wings, so I'm talking about the devil be on my heels, but I got big wings.
This is a really weird way to start an interview, but regardless, Kodak kept calm and the interview continued on. For most of the interview, things were fine and most of the awkward energy had faded, but that changed real fast after Ebro brought up Kodak's SA case.
Look, man, at this point, it's a pleasure to meet you, man. You know, looking at all your cases and everything you've been through, and I know the recent one right now is very sensitive. And with respect to, you know, everybody involved in that case, you know, we can't get into details today. But, you know, we take sexual assault here serious. And we can't, you know, get into details, but we hope, you know, to have you back so we can have a deeper conversation about that because, you know, this is a serious topic. And we're hearing these stories a lot.
One thing we were talking about on the show today that for some reason I just have a hunch that you would care about is the idea that landing on the moon was a conspiracy. Kodak, do you believe that our moon landing in 1969 actually took place?
What the fuck y'all talking about?
You seem upset that I brought it up.
I feel like sometimes when niggas like be going through shit, like y'all be entertained by bullshit. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like change the subject. I'm finna walk out.
We'll change which subject?
Just whatever. Like,
well, no, they tried to change the subject. They was talking about the moon landing.
That's bullshit too. So talk about something else.
Well, I was saying, I think
we don't have to talk about nothing else. We could be done right here.
All right, I'm going. Say less.
We saw Paul try to change the subject, you know, keep things lighthearted, but Kodak was already pissed. And I don't know what Ebro's problem is, but he's always like mean mugging his guests, getting angry all the time. He's just the worst. I don't like his interviews, I'm sorry. The comments were tearing Ebro apart for this, saying that what he did was totally unprofessional and that it seems like he had something against Kodak from the start. Since Kodak was being accused of some pretty serious stuff at the time, most people weren't really sticking up for Kodak in particular, but they did point out how Kodak handled the situation maturely and that he just got ambushed. Plus, think about it, if you have an ongoing SA case, you're not going to want to talk about it in some interview. Since Ebro received tons of flack for the viral interview, he actually put out a tweet defending himself, and the next day he addressed everything on the show. And while his co-host agreed that the SA case should have been brought up, they also pointed out that Ebro handled the situation the wrong way and should have went about it differently.
I still don't think you handled it right, but I do think you did the right thing. I just think the delivery of it was such that there could have been a balance in which it didn't go the way it went. Like, I still think you were defensive, and I think you puffed your chest up at him, and I think that's when things got
when I
bad.
brought up the sexual assault?
Yeah.
When I was saying, like, when I sat there and I was like, hopefully you could come back, you think I puffed my chest up at that point?
I think that part was nice. No, I thought that part was good, but then when you go back to the,
he just cursed at y'all for trying to make a joke, bro.
I understand
like,
that.
I don't agree
I'm
with
not gonna
Rosenberg
let
on
that.
this one.
I'm not letting that fly.
They eventually got Ebro to admit that he was kind of in the wrong for being negative the whole time, and other artists even reacted to this interview too, like Trick Daddy, who said, "Ebro, you're supposed to get these guys and put them under your wing and teach them right from wrong, but your bitch ass, you're trying to be a fake ass Charlemagne. There's only one Charlemagne the God." And then a few days later, Kodak was on The Breakfast Club, where he gave his perspective on how everything went down, which, as you can probably guess, he wasn't too happy to talk about it.
Now we saw you having a rough time yesterday in the interview. What about that line of questioning pissed you off?
See, listen, I knew y'all gonna try to bring that shit up. I would curry that shit and say, fuck that. I don't want to talk about that fuck nigga. But at the same time, but listen, at the
I don't
same time,
mind
this an interview, so but it's like the shit was going so, like, it was going so good. I felt like people don't want to see this happy Kodak, like happy go lucky Kodak, vibing, cooling and shit. And like the interview was about to end so good, it was just like, nah, I want to see Yak. You know what I'm talking about? I want him to spit in my face or tear this whole radio station up.
Kodak went on to explain that he left the interview to avoid crashing out on Ebro's bitch ass. But since there's not been much news since then, it can only be assumed that Kodak and Ebro probably aren't the biggest fans of each other.